20th Century Boys is a Japanese manga series written and illustrated by Naoki Urasawa. It was originally produced between 1999 to 2006, and it has a total of 249 chapters. Now this manga follows Kenji and his friends as they try to unearth the mysterious identity behind the mask of the person known as Friend. But before we get into 20th Century Boys, we need to talk about today's video sponsor, ExpressVPN. Let's be honest guys, in the current digital age, your information is up for anyone's grabs. But not with ExpressVPN. That's because they prevent your ISP from seeing your browsing activity. They put a stop to all this by rerouting 100% of your network traffic through their secure, encrypted servers. So in this way, governments, large corporations, and websites can't surveil you and harvest your data for their own agendas. But aside from safety, ExpressVPN gives you unrestricted access to all parts of the internet. So if you want to watch a Netflix show that's not available in the US, you can check the UK servers and see if it's available there. And if you guys sign up today and use the link in my description, you'll get your first 3 months free. So what are you waiting for, guys? If you guys want the best security, privacy, and access to content, you gotta go with ExpressVPN. The year is 1973. We thought something would happen. Various kids are seen eating their lunch as music plays over the PA system. A young girl is tied up as someone tells her to shut up. Lunch hour is our free time. We thought something would happen. What I want to listen to? What we want to hear during our lunchtime? Something. This song. The song plays over the PA system as everyone continues eating their lunch. Not a damn thing happened. It is now the 21st century at the UN headquarters in New York. A man talks about all the dangers that have been avoided, and it's all thanks to a collection of men who saved the human race. Tremors are felt as a woman sees a gigantic robot outside of her apartment. It's now 1997. Kenji works at a mini-mart. He scolds his mother for eating food without paying for it. His sister left behind a baby that now the two of them have to take care of. Two police officers visit the mini-mart and begin questioning Kenji about his deliveries. In particular, they question him about a delivery to Shikishima, who turns out to be a professor at the university. Turns out the entire family is missing. Kenji then stops at Maruro's shop to shoot the breeze. Maruro mentions karaoke, which gets Kenji to thinking. As he picks up the empty bottles from the Shikishima estate, he notices a strange symbol on the wall. It is now 1969. Four boys, two of which are Kenji and Maruro, find a place to call their base. The four then spot the most evilest twins in history, Yambo and Mabo. The twins pull off the wings of a dragonfly as they walk away. Acho then draws a symbol of friendship. Anyone who knows this symbol is a true friend. In real time, a man known as Friend then floats above the symbol in front of an audience. Police come across a body that's been drained of all its blood. An officer then mentions a virus that drains blood from your body. Kenji and Maruro show up at Kuro's wedding. They make fun of Kuro for being a frog emperor. In 1968, the boys had a BB gun fight with the frog emperor. An old lady tries to hook up Kenji with a woman with big boobs, but he's uninterested at the moment, so he's gonna take care of Kana, the baby girl he's looking after right now. Kenji gives a terrible speech at the wedding as Maruro and Yoshitune look at the symbol from their youth. You are dead. Friend tells a man to say, I am dead, 10 times. I see the light, says the man. Turns out that the boy that had his blood drained was a student of Professor Shikishima. Meanwhile, Kenji begins to take part in the karaoke. The boys then dream up fictional scenarios of the end times. Acho listens to the Far East Network on the radio. They talk about a rock concert that had 500,000 people. It is now 3 years later, and Kenji's rocking out with a broom and getting yelled at by one of his classmates. After getting denied by his mother, he saved up money and bought a guitar from a pawn shop. Yamaguchi wants him to play Jumpin' Jack Flash from the Rolling Stones, but he says maybe next time. She tells Kenji that he bought a classic guitar, and he'll need an electric guitar if he wants to play rock. It's 1979. Kenji is skipping classes in hopes of becoming a famous guitar player. Spider takes inspiration from Kenji and becomes a famous guitar player himself, while the latter ends up drunk at home after singing karaoke. Yamaguchi, who goes by Mira, just had her third child. Friend states that the world is coming to an end, but everyone with him will be saved. Donkey, a school instructor, then commits suicide. In the past, Donkey was bullied by Yambo and Mabo. Donkey walks up to Kenji's group, but they get on their bikes to evade him. The boys arrive at a gravel pit where, purportedly, a giant snakefish exists. Donkey shows up again as Maru and Kenji start getting sucked into the water. Donkey then retrieves a rope, attaches its knot towel to the end of it, and pulls the two out to safety. The group then becomes friends afterwards. Kenji opens up a letter from Donkey in real time. Do you remember this symbol? Kenji attends the funeral as he looks over at Donkey's wife and child. As the group eats, Mon-chan wonders if anyone tried to talk to Donkey. The five grab a drink and toast Donkey for the very last time. Mon-chan mentions Katsumata, a boy who died just before a science experiment in school. He supposedly haunted the school. It turns out that Mon-chan forgot to take care of the aquarium at school, so he had Donkey go inside and turn on the switch for the filter. Donkey then saw something and jumped out of the window. Ghost! What Donkey saw that time was something that I would discover later. But once I did, the situation was already past the point of no return. A man named Ma-kun listens to a healing CD. Elsewhere, Friend instructs his followers to hold hands. Friend states he's Collins as he starts crying. In 1969, Kenji and Donkey watch the moon landing with Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins. The next day, Donkey wants to put their own flag on the moon. Kenji shows Donkey's wife the symbol. She says that a former student of his got involved with some friend. Kenji thinks of Donkey as he stares at the moon. Kenji looks into his former student, Tamura, finding out that he's in Shikishima's class, i.e. the professor who went missing. After Kenji looks for Tamura at the baseball field, he sees a bunch of boys wearing t-shirts with a symbol on it. A base runner twists his ankle, so Kenji is forced to fill in. He removes his shoes and begins to run. Friend talks about a purification through full-body blood drainage. Meanwhile, Kenji gets caught and is called out. Ma-kun takes a knife with him before going out. Kenji confronts Tamura, i.e. Ma-kun, about Donkey's suicide. Kenji shows him the symbol. Tamura says, "This is one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Kenji asks for his friends to remember the symbol as they don't seem to care. Mon-chan asserts that they buried something in that field. The group then reaches the place where the field was. Elsewhere, Tamura kills a popular religious sect leader. The Kenji group then digs up a box near a tree with the friend symbol on it. In the past, the boys decided to bury items into the ground as their secret base was being lost to a bowling alley. In the now, the container contains a plastic frog and a snake, as well as a poster from a porno. Kenji finds a drawing of a robot that he drew when he was a kid. Do you remember this symbol? Elsewhere, Friend states that preachers of false doctrines will be purified. The time for destruction and rebirth has come. In the past, Kenji says, "The next time we dig this up is when the Earth is in grave danger, and then we'll save the planet from the enemy." Yukiji states that someone licks her crotch every single day. Turns out it's a dog. She complains about her miserable love life as she sees the symbol. Members of the Friend organization create a structure representing the visual inside his heart. Mon-chan leaves for Dusseldorf. Kenji begins to connect the dots with the symbol's appearance and strange happenings. Yukiji's dog then bites onto Kenji. In the past, only Yukiji was able to stop the most evilest twins in the world. In the now, Kenji asks her about the symbol, but she storms off. Ichihara then questions Inshu about the cryptic organization, whom are taking sons and daughters away from their parents. The organization has no name, and the leader holds great friendship. Inshu then leaves, as Ichihara finds out that all the spoons were bent in a very weird fashion. Yukiji arrives at Kenji's mini-mart. "I remembered who made up the symbol. Acho did. Anyone who knows this symbol is a true friend." Yukiji hands Kenji Ichihara's business card and tells him at 2 o'clock, victims of the friend group are going to report there. In the past, Yambo and Mabo took off their shirts, saying you have to play sumo naked. They try to rip off Yukiji's clothes as Kenji comes in to defend her. In the now, Yukiji finds out that Acho went missing in an auto accident 9 years ago. Turns out he divorced his wife 1 month prior to this accident. Yukiji remembers how Kenji got beaten up by the twins, as the current Kenji is close to losing his business. Chosan buys a game called Peekaboo for his grandchild. Chosan then talks to Yama about the Shikishima case. Cho then shows Yama the symbol for the mysterious organization. It turns out that Cho asked a theologist about the friend cult. The theologist says they had a quarrel with the Pierre's Heart people. Cho asked the manager if he knew what the symbol was. Turns out Friend and Pierre studied under a certain religious group 17 years ago. Cho sought out the original group, which was called Seeking the Curious. He followed the breadcrumbs from there until he found out that Friend and Kenji were former classmates. He went to question Kenji, but Kenji was getting chewed out by a corporate manager at the moment, so he walked away. Cho gets a call from his daughter about his grandson's birthday. Relations had been rocky between the two ever since he missed her wedding, and arrived late at the hospital when his wife passed away. Cho mentions a talk he had with Kenji's old teacher. Apparently, there was a spoon-bending incident in school. Cho gets a call from his daughter as Yama encourages him to go. Yama then talks to someone on the phone, saying that Cho knew too much, and he purified him. Yama then reveals a shirt with the symbol symbol on it. Yukaji hands Kenji an invitation to the class reunion. Turns out she's setting the whole thing up to get information about Acho. She asks what Kenji thinks about the symbol, but he doesn't respond. Yukaji says that after the accident 9 years ago, a rival businessman saw him in India 8 years ago. And when the businessman called out to him, he said, "I'm going to Tibet." Kenji tells Yukaji he quit the band, but he can't remember why. Friend states he must make dream reality, and his dream is world conquest. In December of 2000, humanity will be destroyed. A man called God has a bad dream. God then explains the principles of bullying to a group of eager hobos. God tells Hama-san to be careful of kids. God notices that the hamburger lunch is expired at Kenji's store. God says that Kenji will suffer a major calamity as he leaves with the food. Hama-san gets beaten up by some young kids. God then reveals information about the kids that startle them. And then he proceeds to explain bowling. Afterwards, he has a dream about a giant monster that goes Zun. In December of 2000, humanity will be destroyed. Kenji's sister saved him from dying as a baby. Kenji's manager wants him to get rid of the child or risk getting fired. It turns out that Kenji fell in the river multiple times as a kid. His sister saved him and got sick as a result. Kenji later almost died falling off of his bike. He then realizes that his sister always looked after him, and the only time she was selfish is when she dropped off her baby. He then finds a letter that says they had the same plan as a piece of paper with the symbol on it falls out. After Kenji's father's death, he asked his sister to take over the store so he could focus on his band. His mom burst in, wondering why he's in his sister's room. Before Kenji was born, their family was broke. Kiriko, his sister, volunteered to be the mommy for the new baby. Later on, Kiriko dated a boy at school to get an electric guitar for Kenji. Kenji thusly felt invincible when he got the guitar. Kenji stands up to his manager, saying he'll be the one to raise his sister's baby. Kenji then finds out that Moriboshi wrote the letter, but he committed suicide. Or perhaps he was pushed in front of a train. In the past, Moriboshi got transferred, leaving his new address for Kiriko. As he waited for the train to come, he was pushed down by someone. A girl is now late for her test due to a delay at the train station. After the test, she talks to a boy and goes out for some tea. The boy then talks to Inchu, saying that the girl will go down fast. Turns out that this boy pushed Moriboshi at the train station. On their date, the girl says her dad is Professor Shikishima, and he constructs robots. December of 2000, an unidentified object roams the Shinjuku district. In 1967, Kenji and Kiriko get ice cream after seeing Godzilla. A newspaper reads that a mysterious pathogen has gotten loose in the San Francisco cafe. And this happened in the same cafe 30 years after the fact that they got ice cream. The hobos find a stabbed man in one of their tents. The man says he's looking for Kenji, a great man. God then goes to meet with Kenji. God tells Chusan to run off with the food without paying. God then tells Kenji if he wants to save the world, to chase him. The bleeding man asks Kenji where he'll release the bacteria. Hurry! Stop Friend from making a coup! Friend is trying to destroy the world! Kenji doesn't know who Friend is. They were all ideas you plotted out as a boy. 1969. Acho says the bad guys will conquer the world through germ warfare. Kenji says he'll attack the cafe at San Francisco first. Where will the germs be released next? London, replies Kenji. The man says that this laser gun was also his idea. Kenji then believes that Friend is Acho. The man then recalls what Donkey said before he killed him. Friend is no savior. Everything Friend is saying is stuff Kenji made up when we were kids. The police have been infiltrated as the man hands Kenji a letter from Donkey. You're the only one who can save the world. The hobos place the body into the water. Kenji runs off with the letter in his hand. What the hell am I supposed to do? Kenji opens up the paper at home. Mysterious pathogen spreads to London. Kenji looks at the picture of the laser gun he drew as a child. He then stares at the image of the giant robot that he also drew. The letter from Donkey states that he thought that Kenji was Friend at first. But after confirming he wasn't, he instructs him to save the world. God claims that Kenji will stand up and fight. Though, to save the world, Kenji loudly plays his guitar as the police stand outside. Kenji then eats lunch with Maruro, but decides not to get him involved with the Friend situation. Kenji cheers up Yoshitune as he decides not to tell him either. Kenji then finds out that Friend is holding a concert on September 19th, 1997. Maruro and Yoshitune look for Kenji at the minimart as Kenji arrives at the Friend concert. The audience howls at the performances as Kenji wonders what's so funny. A rock concert breaks out as everyone holds hands. I won't call this rock, says Kenji. The main singer calls Kenji up for not getting into the spirit of the performance. Kenji steals the mic and says that Friend killed one of his friends and released the pathogens. What's the next place, Kenji-kun? Kana stands up for the first time and says boo. Friend then descends downwards. He then walks over to Kenji and says, "Long time no see, Kenji-kun. It's me." Friend asks Kenji what's next. Next is Osaka. The great prophet Kenji. Kenji points a laser gun at Friend, blaming him for all the murders. "You can't shoot Kana's father, can you? You are my little brother." The audience tosses Kenji out. Kenji then remembers a boy from his past that wore that same mask. Two men with gas masks toss a vial at a police officer. Attack on the Palace of Laughs. Mysterious virus lands in Japan. That was my idea too. Kenji blames himself as Yukaji attempts to calm him down. Kenji wants to attend the friend-victim meeting and tell them everything. Kenji shows up at the class reunion, hardly remembering anyone. Fukube then starts talking with Kenji. He says his wife got caught up in the friend cult, and he's trying to remember everyone who knew about it. There's one more. As Fukube looked at the Book of Prophecy as a child, a mysterious person asked to see it. Kenji's old teacher interrupts. He then brings up the spoon-bending incident that happened in school, but no one can remember who did it. The sensei has them all close their eyes as the culprit reveals himself. In a taxi, Fukube is too drunk to remember who saw the Book of Prophecy. Kenji drags him upstairs as his kids say they're hungry. Fukube then says that Sadakio saw the book. Kenji feeds Fukube's kids and puts the man himself to bed. Fukube asks to see the Book of Prophecy, but Kenji threw it away years ago. Kenji then sees a CD from T-Rex on the nightstand. Kenji then goes to Maruro's house to check their old graduation album. Sadakio always wore a mask and got picked on as a kid. Maruro heard a rumor that he died in middle school. As kids, Acha recommended a bomb going off in the airport. Kenji then rushes off to the airport in the current time, worrying about Yukaji. "This one's gonna start with a bang," says God. A man at the airport was wrongly accused of possessing drugs, but it was only flour. Yukaji proceeds to apologize, but Inshu says it's okay. Kenji tries to warn Yukaji about the airport, but the dog bites onto Inshu, revealing his shirt with the symbol on it. Kenji believes he has the bomb, but Yukaji is correct in saying it's a mysterious powder. Inshu enters the cab, saying it's almost time. Haneda Airport then explodes. Inshu then warns Kenji that something terrible will happen to Kana. A group of friend supporters then flood the minimart. They ask to hold the baby as they take her by force. The fated child! Erika grabs the baby and runs off. Erika then returns as the friend followers lurk outside the minimart. The friend followers burst in, but Kenji grabs Kana and runs off. Yukaji manages to keep them at bay as the friend followers burn one of their own alive. The store! The minimart manager states it's been 3 weeks since Kenji's store burned down. He's gone missing ever since. Likely because he can't pay his own debts. Yukaji tells Maru and Yoshitune everything she knows regarding the incidents. Elsewhere, in an undisclosed location, Kenji's mom bemoans their terrible predicament. Kenji returns to the wreckage and starts digging. He then finds a box with the friend symbol on it. Kenji leaves a note for Yukaji saying he'll get in touch with her when the time comes. She wonders what this means. Kenji and his mom walk on the sidewalk as God shows him the laser gun from the wreckage. He says he'll need it for his last battle. We then see Kenji holding the Book of Prophecy. A man named Shogun then beats up some thugs in an apartment. After saving the victim's life, he takes his wallet and possessions. Turns out this quote-unquote victim tried to buy a 14-year-old girl, so Shogun despises him. It's rumored that Shogun has killed countless men. It is now the summer of 2000, and Shogun attempts to reason with a girl who wants to commit suicide. He says he'd be sad if she died, as she decides to abort the suicide. Shogun then looks at her Shonen magazine, laughing that the hand mark is still there, confusing the shop owner. "Daddy, when will you come back again?" says Acho's son. Shogun wakes up and is tossed out a window. Shogun finds out a new drug called Rainbow Kid is selling well in Japan. A man tells Shogun that a Japanese tourist overdosed on it and is about to kick the bucket. The man then mentions the Friendship Democratic Party, but Shogun is already gone. Shogun finds the overdose man, as he claims that Japan belongs to Friend. Plan. Another plan. Destruction of the Earth. Shogun then finds the friend symbol in his wallet. Shogun determines that this Japanese man was murdered and did not overdose. Shogun then goes to Chaipan's headquarters, looking for a girl named Mei. He fights his way out as he remembers his training with a monk. He eventually gets cornered, but is saved by Inshu as he asks for directions. "I want to be stronger," screams Acho in the past. Inshu hands Shogun a business card as he waits for his bus. Mei thanks Shogun for his assistance. Shogun remembers the monk's teaching about strength, which is to wait for something important. Shogun sees the girl off as he returns for another job. Mei then arrives with blood all over her body. Because they saw Inshu's face, they're an impediment and will be eliminated. The girl passes away as Shogun receives a call. "Is that you, Acho?" "It's me, Kenji." In 1969, Yambo and Mabo destroyed their base. Acho learns about love and peace from a hippie. Maruo then reveals that Yambo and Mabo pulled down his pants in front of everyone. Maruo and Yoshitune tell Acho about the incident, but he says it's all about love and peace. In the now, Kenji needs Acho to prevent Friend from destroying the world. Kenji begs for his help, but Acho hangs up the phone. In the past, Acho came to Kenji's aid in his fight with Yambo and Mabo. Acho carries the corpse of Mei and says that he has a few things he needs to take care of. "Open your eyes and see your fear," says the monk to Acho. In the now, Shogun returns Mei to her family. Shogun goes to Myanmar, Thailand, to look for a Rainbow Kid drug. He receives a tip to head towards Gango Pagoda. The trek is arduous, and he even gets drugged by an old lady. He makes his way inside the temple. There's a man that says, "The world will end." The man shows Shogun the god of destruction and the god of fear. He then shows him the symbol of Friend. The man then hands him some Rainbow Kid. He tells him about the virus that drained people of their blood in 1997. Despite never reading a newspaper in the last 10 years, Shogun knows all about the events that preceded. He then recalls how his son was killed by a motorist. He then tells the man he's immune to poisons, and his heart died the day his son passed away. It turns out that this is the man that lit Kenji's convenience store on fire. Shogun says he'll destroy the Rainbow Kid manufacturing plant. The two make their way inside, as Shogun stares up at a banner of the Friend symbol. What a crazy plan that was. He then blows up the plant. The man wants to save the others, but the plant blows up shortly afterwards. Japan, summer of 2000. An officer wants to see Shogun's passport, but when a Friend symbol falls out, he salutes him. Kenji then approaches Shogun. "Nice to see you again, Acho." Shogun notices a wanted sign for Kenji on the door. "This is the Defender for Justice, who's gonna save the world from danger," says Kenji. He reminds Acho that humanity will be destroyed in December of 2000. Kenji then takes Acho to an abandoned subway platform. "This is our secret base." Kana then introduces herself to Acho. Kenji managed to destroy Jiaonan Medical College, where they created the germ weapons. Acho claims that the giant robot has already been built, based on the pictures he saw. "I believe Friend will be quite pleased, Professor Shikishima," says Inshu as he looks at the robot. In 1997, Inshu and Shikishima talk about the construction of the robot. Though Shikishima is in disbelief that a 50-meter robot can be constructed, the room argues about it anyway. They continue arguing about specifics, as Inshu suggests that they ask Friend. Inshu then communicates Friend's wishes, saying he wants it to be powered by atomic energy. Shikishima thinks this is all ludicrous, but Inshu says if he doesn't do it, he will never see his daughter again. In the year 2000, Kenji finds Shikishima's daughter in a brothel. He asks if she is being held here as a prisoner. He then covers her mouth, and states Friend's goal was to go after her father to build the robot. "The world will end on December 2000. The underground Emperor Kenji and his demons will be released from the bottom of the earth. It sleeps now, waiting for the Great Awakening." Kenji tells Shogun that he's going to destroy the robot, no matter the risk. Acho decides to accompany him. We then find out that a man was pleased with Shikishima's daughter's performance. Friend will be pleased. In the past, the boys' baseball went into a cave. That might have been an old abandoned air raid shelter. Acho and Kenji went inside to retrieve their ball. However, it was tossed back to them. In the now, Acho says a mushroom cultivator tossed their ball back to them. The two enter a room where a giant thing used to be. Kenji activates a VCR as a mysterious person says, "Let's play. If you don't get everyone together again, you'll lose." A ball bounces towards the two as something gazes upon them. "The time for play is about to begin. You'll have to get all 9 together." In the past, Yambo and Mabo beat up Kenji and Acho with their wrestling moves. As Kenji laid on the ground, he saw his friends coming to his rescue. "Let's take this symbol back." Maru tells his son to take care of his mother in Hakata. Yoshitune then hands in his resignation and tells his boss to leave Tokyo. Manchan and Fukube join the cause, with Kenji, Ocho, Maru, and Yoshitune. Yukichi then steps in, but they still need 2 more people. "Nice weather today." "Yes, such a refreshing day." says a pair of unknown individuals. The president and the vice president protect Nagatsuka from the scorn of the other businessmen. Nagatsuka thanks the two and says that his son has been bullied terribly. The two, who turn out to be Yanbo and Mabo, meet up with Yoshitune. The two state that they're good old friends, and that the Kenji group is not alone. Yanbo and Mabo meet up with Inshu. The two give up the location of Kenji's secret base to Inshu. Kenji plays his guitar outside, with Kana by his side. Kenji doesn't want Kana near him anymore, since things are about to get dangerous in Tokyo. He then waves goodbye to Kana and his mom. Yukaji will protect Kenji for Kana's sake. Acho brought guns, and Kenji brought dynamite to the fight. God then comes in after having a bad dream. They are coming! The Book of Prophecy foretells that a gigantic atomic-powered robot laid everything to waste and spread more of the germs on December 31st, 2000. And then, 9 brave warriors stood forth. How will they fight to keep the peace of the world? The National Defense Squad raids Kenji's hideout, but they weren't there when it happened. Kenji's crew then looks to identify Friend's location, but he doesn't show up at any of his events. Fukube bugged Inshu's office, but still there was no presence of Friend. With no progress, Kenji proposes that they give up. Kenji then remembers that the National Diet Building was in plans to blow up as Acho witnesses the event for himself. The signal was fired. It was the signal that the countdown to human extinction has begun. 31 Diet members were killed, and 91 were severely injured. The only party unaffected by the bombing was the Friendship Party. The Kenji faction is blamed for the incident. Meanwhile, Acho wants to abduct Inshu so they can discover the location of Friend. It is now December 31st, 2000. Kenji plays his guitar as Kana comes to visit him. 2 boys who are listening to Kenji's music are then killed by the giant robot. It started, says Kenji. The giant robots simultaneously attack major cities all around the world. A soldier is instantly killed amongst a crowd of panicked people. The Kenji faction prepares for their counter-resistance as Kenji instructs them not to die. Kenji hugs Kana as Yoshitune asks what the friendship symbol means. Acho took the hand from the next symbol on a manga page, and because he had big eyes as a child, he simply combined the two to make the friendship symbol. The Kenji group then gets ready to protect the world from danger. The 21st Century, UNHQ, New York. Please give your warmest welcome to the men who have saved the human race. It is now 2014, and Kana is moving into an apartment. Kana hears gunshots outside of her job. She later decides to leave to visit a ramen shop that reminds her of the one that she ate at with her uncle. Kana then gets caught in the middle of a standoff. She takes their guns and says that the streets do not belong to the mafia. She checks in on the ramen owner, finding out that she ate at his teacher's store. His teacher died 14 years ago on the bloody New Year's Eve. The 2 mafia bosses come in, as Kana orders them some ramen. She orders another bowl to go, and takes it to a memorial that states, "Mankind shall praise thou, saviors of the earth, with the greatest gratitude for eternal time. Happy birthday, Uncle Kenji." Kana then notices another ramen bowl that is empty on the ground. Investigators come across a dead body from the Chinese mafia. A priest comes by, revealing that he was also part of the mafia at one point. Police then raid a gang hideout, with Detective Chono taking one of the men. He then comes across the restaurant owner, but Kana proceeds to hit him. "I hate you! I hate police!" says Kana. The investigators then question her and take her hat away. We then find out that someone saw a purported police officer killing the Chinese mafia member. The police then question Kana's caretaker, Yukaji. The officer asks what happened to Kana on the bloody New Year's Eve, but Yukaji can't respond to that. Chono and another officer go to question the father about the incident, but he has no relevant information. Chono then runs into Kana, but she angrily passes by him. It turns out that Chono is the grandson of Chosan, the legendary detective who died 1 week before his retirement. Chono returns Kana's hat as she apologizes for hitting him. Kana then redecorates her room to give it more of a 60s vibe, which were a time of rock. Yukaji scolds Kana for her recent actions, but Kana says it's because she didn't let her play her Uncle Kenji's song. Kana blares the radio as Yukaji apologizes to the neighbors. Yukaji then reads their manga and says it's superficial love. She'd rather see a story about men who save the world. The two eventually decide to do a love comedy, claiming they can't disobey a friend. Chono goes to the restaurant, asking Kana if she's seen a woman called Brittany. The owner states that Brittany has a large tab, and she's not getting out of repaying it. Kana is then taken to Brittany Brittany, who states that she saw who killed the mafia man, but she won't say who it was. They then take Brittany to the police station as she quickly identifies who killed the mafia member. Chono stares at a picture of his grandpa as he wonders if he'll ever be a great detective. Chono inspects the shotgun at the police station. Chono then determines that a police officer could not have been behind the murder, as the officer that Brittany identified rides by on his bicycle. Kana tells Brittany to leave as she gives her some money. Brittany has to collect a shaver from her dad, who died in the bloody New Year's Eve. Kana says she'll grab it for her as she runs into Chono. Kana is told to run since Chono's superior is coming. She then tells Chono that the officer with the mole killed the Chinese mafia member. Elsewhere, the warden of a prison welcomes a new batch of prisoners with a minimum sentence of 80 years. They'll be stuck on this island indefinitely, forever staring at the lights of Tokyo. A prisoner warns Kakeda not to get sent to special isolation, because a monster lives down there. He claims that the monster's been here for 14 years, and he's eaten people. Kakeda draws a picture that the guards get a hold of, and henceforth send him to special isolation. They stomp on Kakeda's hand, but a prisoner points a shank at one of the officer's eyes. The officers lock up Kakeda and restrain the monster with thick chains. Kakeda tries to converse with the monster, but he merely makes weird noises. Kakeda mentions that he has a mangaka, and his collection of Osamu Tezuka books were burnt up in the Bloody New Year's Eve. Kakeda was sent to prison for writing about a defender of justice, who aimed to defeat a man bent on world domination. That defender of justice is actually the very man who was trying to destroy the world himself. The monster laughs and says he only has 2 weeks to live. If he doesn't want to die, he has to escape by helping the monster. Kakeda wants to escape, but then he smells blood. There's a monster down here. The monster instructs Kakeda to stay quiet. He got here through a hole in the wall. The monster tells Kakeda to grab a pencil from Yukaji Tunnel and draw on the wall. The monster, who is known as Number 3, tried to escape over 300 times in the past 14 years. Everyone who has helped him in escaping has died. Kakeda was arrested with his fellow mangaka, and the only ones left are Kaneko and Yujiki. Yujiki fell in love with a girl who listened to her uncle's songs on a cassette tape at high volume. The girl's name? Kana's Tunnel, says Number 3. It's the name of our last hope. Kakeda wonders what he's talking about, but Number 3 says, "Call me Shogun." Kana then writes a letter to Acho asking for his help. Kaneko and Yujiki work on their manga while thinking of Kenji's song. The two see Kana packing and tell an officer with a mole on his face to come over and search her apartment. Brittany tells Kana that the Chinese mafia man said something before he died. Assassination of the Pope. Chono walks in as Brittany clarifies that the phrasing was assassination of friend. Yama is promoted to the chief of police. "I don't trust the police," says Kana. In the now, Chono asks Kana to trust him, but she resists. Chono says he's got a powerful ally that they can trust. He's then seen with Yama. Chono tells him what the Chinese mafia member said before he died. Pope assassination. Friend. Yama sees Chono off, claiming that he's sticking his head where it doesn't belong, just like his grandfather. "I want that boy purified," says Yama. Chono tells Kana and the others that they don't have to worry anymore, but she doesn't believe him. Nevertheless, she leaves the two girls with Chono as she heads off to the restaurant. At the restaurant, she stares at a good luck charm that Chono gave her. Brittany dances with Chono as she collapses to the ground. "It's a transmitter," says Kana as she inspects the good luck charm. The officer with the mole then walks in and says, "Your service has ended, Detective Chono." Just then, Kana whacks the officer from behind with a frying pan. Chono fires off a round, but the officer disappears. Kana reveals that all of the charms have transmitters. "You said you would protect her!" Chono doubts himself as he remembers that Yama was the one that told him about this situation. Meanwhile, Shogun says, "Kana is our last hope, and I must save her." In the past, Kenji poisoned the principal's flower bed with weeds from his garden. The boys then wondered what would happen in the Great Escape movie. Acho, however, already saw the movie, but he pretended not to know the ending. In the now, Acho remembers the words of Kenji, "Only those who will believe, they'll survive." In prison, Tomura talks to the chief warden. Tomura then visits Shogun. "Same as always, Number 3? Number 3, replies Shogun. "It's been 10 years. No, even more. The child of God may need to be terminated," says Tomura as he leaves. The prison guards return Kakeda to his original cell as they find a picture that he drew. He offers to draw them some dirty pictures as they tacitly accept. Inmates trade food with Mr. Post for information. Kakeda hands him a telecard, which allows him to ask 3 questions. "It's about prisoner number 13. Says Kakeda. Kakeda runs into trouble in the prison yard and ends up in special isolation again. He tells Shogun that Number 13 will be involved in the assassination of the Pope. hope. In 2 weeks, Shogun says that they'll be on the outside world. Shogun and Kagura make their escape. The two climb through a shaft as Shogun engages the guards. The two then enter the tunnel that leads to Tokyo. Eventually though, they see that the tunnel is flooded, but Shogun pushes forward for Kenji's sake. Elsewhere, God says that Earth looks like a bowling ball from space. In the past, Acho and Kenji had a competition to see who could hold their breath the longest. Acho came up first, making Kenji the winner, but he didn't know how to swim. In the now, the water is freezing cold, and they've got 10 kilometers to get to Tokyo. Unfortunately, they hit a roadblock. Shogun decides to check the emergency path. After some time, Kagura dives after him. His pants get stuck as he remembers his time as a mangaka. Shogun pulls him out as the two notice the light shining through the tunnel. Shogun and Kagura see the outside, but patrol helicopters are lining the skies. This is all to capture Shogun, who is planning something major. Shogun and Kagura then swim their way onto a Thai poaching boat. 21st century Tokyo. It's a city of the future we dreamed of, Kenji. After reaching land, Shogun collapses in front of a huge landmark. Oh my god. In the past, Kenji's group talks about the World Expo. The boys talk about all the stuff they want to see. We knew that we would see the 21st century of our dreams. Donkey's family can't afford the trip to Osaka, so he asks to borrow Kenji's bike. Later on, Kenji tells Acho that he can't go since his dad set up an outing on the beach on the same day. Kenji, henceforth, sang the song of the expo on the beach. While going to the expo, Donkey's bike broke. In the now, Shogun notices that the pavilions are the same as they were back then. Shogun then notices the friend symbol, which utterly shocks him. In school, Kaizumi wants to do a book report on Hitler, but is rebuked by the teacher. She then says she wants to do one on the leader of the terrorist organization, the Kenji faction. The teacher remembers the bloody New Year's Eve, and how if friend wasn't there, everything would have ended. Kaizumi finds the event very suspicious, and wants to do her book report on it. After class, Kaizumi finds out that Kana went wild, and broke a window when they talked about Kenji the terrorist. Kaizumi goes to the Friend Peace Memorial, finding an old man eating ramen. It turns out to be God, and he analogizes Kenji's situation with the 7-10 split, and how he threw a gutter ball. Shogun and Kagura see a dead man on the street, who was previously seen with a police officer. Now the cops are looking for a runaway girl that Shogun instinctively knows is Kana. Koizumi asks about details about the Bloody's New Year's Eve, but God merely signs his name on a piece of paper. Several of the hobos ask for God's autograph, as Koizumi pulls him away. Apparently, God is a super rich billionaire who paid his way to go to space. But despite this, he enjoys the bum life. Police then disperse the bums as they find Shogun and Kagura. The mole-faced police officer shoots a man that looks like Shogun. Shogun will now join the Thai mafia. God and Shogun then decide to tell the other two about the bloody New Year's Eve. Let's get moving. Gotta protect the world from danger. The robot rampages through the streets, with dead bodies everywhere. Unfortunately, Kenji's faction is taking the brunt of the blame. Kenji determines that the robot is being controlled via a remote. Acho decides to ride to the Friendship Party HQ. Turns out all the boys had a crush on Yukaji, but they suspected she liked Kenji. Manchun then reveals that he's not in the best of health. Acho tells Yukaji that her and Kana are the last hope, and to go home. But Yukaji is in no mood to take orders. Kagura is shocked that Shogun's story contradicts all the textbooks. Back in 2000, Acho's group finds a bunch of Friend supporters laughing at the devastation. Acho sees someone suspicious on the monitors, and tells Kenji about it. Kenji runs into the building and sees Fukube pointing his gun at someone. Kenji! It's him! He's controlling the robot! Kenji tells Fukube that he's Kana's father. Fukube's wife was dragged into a cult, and he deduces that Friend is Sadakio. Kenji thought he died in middle school. I was your friend! Your only friend! Says Fukube. But because Sadakio was bullied, Fukube left him. Fukube climbs the fence, as he states he wanted to be a member of the Kenji group. Fukube attempts to wrestle the controller from Friend as the mask falls off. It's not Sadakio! Kenji remembers a conversation with Fukube, in which he thanked him for joining their group of friends. Fukube fell, says Kenji over the radio. With the remote control destroyed, Acho wonders why the robot is still moving. Acho tells the others to tell him what's happening, but they mock him. Maruro shows up as he sees the dead body of Fukube and the masked man. The two then drive a truck with dynamite towards the robot. In the now, God says that all they could hear over the radio in Kenji's truck was 20th Century Boys. Kenji plays rock and roll on the loudspeakers at school. For 3.5 minutes, Kenji was invincible. Unfortunately for Kenji, nothing happened as no one noticed. Kenji forgot all about that event, but it's thanks to Fukube's tape that he remembered. The Prime Minister finds out that 5,000 people have died from the devastation. A helicopter reports that the robot is radioactive. Rest at ease, Mr. Prime Minister. I have arrived just in time. Acho finds 3 radioactive suits. Kenji, Acho, and Maru drive the truck between the monster's legs. What the hell? In the now, Shogun tells Kakuta that the robot looked crude and cheap. Instead of legs, it used caterpillar treads to move forward, and the body was simply a large balloon. This wasn't the future we dreamed of, says Kenji. Kenji and Acho then move their way up. Elsewhere, Inshu says they've created a vaccine for the deadly virus that is spreading. The Prime Minister orders for the emergency use of the vaccine. Inshu then states, Friend is gonna risk his own life to save the world. Kenji grabs the dynamite from Acho as the latter falls off the robot. In 1969, Kenji shows his friends the finished drawing of the robot. Damn, stupid! This is not the robot I made up! Acho tells Kenji the robot may be radioactive. Kenji then reaches the cockpit. Unfortunately for Kenji, the driver is a mannequin. Kenji tells everyone to get away from the robot, as he's rigged it to explode. Kenji-kun, let's play some more! Friend's robot then arrives in front of the robot that Kenji's in. I am right here. Kenji demands that he take off his mask. Friend does so, as Kenji says, You. The 21st century. Kana says a giant explosion destroyed the whole area, where the Friend Shrine now exists. Kana plays a song that was recorded by her uncle. Thank you very much. His singing is pretty bad, says Chono. The UN gives a standing ovation to the Friendship Party for their effort in creating a vaccine and saving the world from a terrorist organization. Inshu says the real thanks belongs to Friend, who is now in the hospital for risking his life. Let us join hands and walk together, my loving friends. God explains that everything written in the textbooks are lies contrived by the Friendship Party. God is now looking for Kana, Kenji's niece. At school, Koizumi is chosen for mandatory training because of her interest in the events of the Bloody New Year's Eve. She is then picked up by a bus so that she can learn more about Friend. At Tomodachi Land, Koizumi plays a simulator where a creepy version of Kenji attacks her. Tomodachi Land houses rides and shows that brainwash people into thinking that the Kenji's faction was pure evil. In the bathhouse, Koizumi is terrified by a man who presses his face up against the glass. While listening to music, a staff member takes away her headphones and says that no objects from the outside world are allowed. Koizumi looks for a hidden camera as she finds the words, "Help me," scribbled on the wall. The phones don't reach the outside world, so Koizumi decides that she's gonna run. While Koizumi escapes, she watches another girl get caught and receive some sort of injection that knocks her out. Koizumi runs into the peeping Tom and demands the photo back that he took of her. He leads her to the outside world, as a couple of others call him Captain. Koizumi steps into the car with the man as she finds out that he's Yoshitune. Yoshitune takes her to the secret base. He hands her a security card that allows her to enter and exit Tomodachi Land at will. Yoshitune takes her to the basement, where pictures of the Kenji faction reside. Turns out Yoshitune ran off during the Bloody New Year's Eve, due to the fact that he was really scared. Yoshitune informs her that the Friendship Party will chase her to the ends of the earth, so she'll have to improve her rank to number 3 or higher to avoid going to Tomodachi World. It turns out that Yoshitune helped out someone else like this before, and upon leaving, he left a good luck charm and scribbled "Help me" countless times in the room. Yoshitune then found a piece of paper in the trash can that said, "I met Friend," and played with him. We then see Koizumi going through the multiple tests in attempt to attain a number 3 ranking. She then goes into the virtual reality game, where she shoots the members of the Kenji's faction. After successfully beating the game, she's congratulated for her stellar results. Afterwards, Koizumi informs Yoshitune that she attained her goal of 3rd place. Now it turns out that when Yoshitune cleaned up the room for the bonus stage, there were pools of thick red blood. Come back safely in one piece, says Yoshitune. Koizumi is put into a virtual reality where she sees Sadakio. Where am I? She then finds out it's August 28th, 1971. She then finds the Kenji faction when they were mere boys. After Koizumi talks to the boys for a bit, Tamoko's brother asks the group if they can retrieve a baseball for him. Acho distracts the dogs with some meat as Kenji goes in to grab the ball. Koizumi helps them escape as the owner attempts to catch them. Koizumi decides to sleep in the field for the night as Kenji comes up to her and says they're going on a test of courage at the house on the hanging hill. In the now, Yoshitune has dinner with his subordinates. They're worried about Koizumi, but Yoshitune says that it's necessary in finding Friend's true identity. They then notice a secret message within the paper, the Hanging Hill. Yoshitune tells him a story of a man and his foster daughter disappearing on the Hanging Hill. Koizumi introduces herself to the boys as they get ready to go to the Hanging Hill, but none of them seem to care. They enter the mansion as they're scared to see an anatomy poster. The boys and Koizumi look up the stairs as they see a good luck charm. Oh, that's what it meant. A Teru Teru Bozu. In 1971, the boys started laughing. While the other boys are leaving, Kenji and Acho decide they'll do some more investigating. In the now, Yoshitune runs out of the house. We're going to Tomodachi Land. Go get the van started. Yoshitune plans on shutting down the power to the virtual attraction building. And they need to hurry because Koizumi's life is in danger. Koizumi then hears the voices inside the mansion. Now in 1971, Yoshitune returned to the house to see two pairs of legs coming from the sheet, just as Koizumi is witnessing now. And one of the boys says, "If you tell anyone about this, I'll kill you." Koizumi begins to peek behind the sheet, as Yoshitune says, "If you look at Friend's face, he'll kill you!" Yoshitune makes his way to the power room to cut the power for the virtual reality. Just before Koizumi looks, the child version of Yoshitune pulls her away. Yoshitune's group hacks in, but shutting down the VR system could damage Koizumi's memory. Yoshitune reveals that he knows who Friend is, based on the shoes that he's wearing. Turns out that it was Sadakio, and he communicates with aliens on the rooftop. They meet up with Sadakio on the roof, as Friend shows up from behind. "Your friend, aren't you?" says Koizumi. She wants to rip off his mask for all the stuff he's done in the current timeline. Friend begins to pull off his own mask, but at the same time, Yoshitune clicks the shut off button. Later on, Yoshitune goes to clean up Koizumi's room, as she appears to be unresponsive. "Something terrible. So horrible it couldn't exist in this world," says Koizumi. In a flashback, Kenji tells Kana about the Woodstock Festival. Kana wants to get back at the police officers who they're up against. They go to a casino to acquire some quick cash. A mysterious man tells her about Rabbit and Nabokov, a game that could net huge winnings. However, those who lost contribute to a growing number of suicides, and it's very easy to cheat at. She then enters a room with a meager amount of money. A man is then taken away to be killed as the game begins. The other two players lose all their money, as Kana wagers everything. If she wins, she'll run the casino into the ground. She looks to flip over a card, as the dealer then pulls out his gun. Everyone draws their weapons, as Kana is declared the winner. And with the winnings, she'll even return the casino's losses. She's gonna give it to the people so that they can help her out. Chaos ensues as Kana tells everyone to come to the Old Ward office square at 5 a.m. "Please come," says a desperate Kana. The group waits for the casino patrons while they drink their coffee. The mysterious gambler wonders if they're terrorists. It turns out that Kana can bend spoons and read cards, but her ESP powers couldn't save Uncle Kenji. The mysterious gambler determines that Kana can manipulate the dealer, something better than ESP. At 6 a.m., 1 hour late, all the casino patrons come towards Kana's group. In 2014, Yukiji pays her respects to Manchun. Someone talks to the priest at the church, saying they want to use this church for several thousand people. She wants the father to ban them all together to stop the assassination of the Pope. She reveals that Kenji is her uncle and that he tried to save the world. The mole officer then hears about the large gathering of people that is to occur at the church. At the 2015 World Expo, Friend plans on assassinating the Pope. The father asks for evidence. Kana gets upset and shows him the Book of Prophecy. Now before Manchun passed away, he showed Yukiji the new Book of Prophecy, and this event occurred in 2002. There was more to the Book of Prophecy. It predicts that there will be a large gathering at Shinjuku Church where a savior will be assassinated. Long live the Expo, long live the Expo. Progress and harmony for mankind. And then, a new world president will be born. These are the only pages he could recover. He feels as though he's close to discovering who Friend is. "I have to fight to save the world," says Mon. However, 2 days later, Mon disappeared from the hospital. Yukiji then meets up with someone who is doing reconnaissance work on the friendship party. Apparently, they're all in high spirits about the new expo. The lady then mentions a gathering at Shinjuku, which horrifies Yukiji. At the Shinjuku church, Kana steps onto the stage. At that gathering, a savior will arise in the name of justice, but be assassinated. Shogun then hears about the girl at the church giving away money. The crowd becomes restless as Kana urges them to be quiet. After saying that she doesn't have any money, she bends a spoon in front of all of them with her mind. If they join her, they'll have enough money to destroy 1 or 2 casinos. She then asks for representatives from the Thai Mafia, the homeless, and the Chinese Mafia. You should know that this could cost you your lives, says Kana. The three hesitate as Chaipan of the Thai Mafia steps forward. Wang of the Chinese Mafia makes his presence known as well. She claims that if the Pope goes missing at the expo, they'll be blamed for the incident. Please, you must help me protect the Pope, says Kana. Outside, Yukichi finds out that Kana is the one giving the speech inside the church. Yukichi freaks out as Kana declares that Friend is their enemy. The mole police officer starts drawing a shotgun from his trench coat. Yukichi gets stuck in the crowd of people as the mole-faced officer makes his way forward. Kana claims that Friend set up all the acts of terrorism on the bloody New Year's Eve. He framed Kenji then, and he'll frame them now. Please lend me your power, so that we can protect the Pope. The crowd erupts in cheers as Yukichi urges Kana to get down. The mole-faced officer has a direct shot on Kana, but just then, Shogun bursts through the window of Christ on the cross. He then uses his body as a shield to protect her. Kana is our last hope. The assassin gets shot as he collapses to the ground. The officer tells Shogun that he was the savior. Long live Friend. Shogun takes the gun as he sees that the bullet came from the window. Tears stream down Yukichi's face as she stares at Acho. However, he's got no time at the moment, as he wants to locate the gunman. Shogun and Kakita enter the building and find Tamura inside. Tamura then shows him part number 3. When the Holy Mother descends, she will bring with her either heaven or hell. A helicopter drops a rope, as Tamura determines that the Holy Mother is Kana's mother, who also turns out to be Kenji's missing sister. Police then arrive to disperse the gathering. Shogun reveals that he found their last hope, as Kakita glides to another building with a rope. Chaipan has no interest at being at odds with Shogun, as the two mafia bosses agree to an alliance. Kana joins in as she has just won a major gamble. Chono then goes to the other officers and requests that they call off the raid. He wants to do this so that they can preserve the crime scene. Afterwards, Yukichi and Kana get some ramen. Yukichi fears for Kana's safety as she says, "You are my daughter." Kenji told Yukichi not to die on the bloody New Year's Eve. Tears then stream down Kana's face. Koizumi meets up with a rock band singer looking for a guitarist. Turns out the guitarist spoke to the devil, and the devil would teach him something amazing for his soul. However, the devil could come and take him at any moment. Koizumi then wakes up in her bed at her house. She then remembers the simulation with Friend, freaking her out. Unfortunately, she can't remember the face under the mask. She returns to school, passing by Kana in the hallway. Koizumi approaches Kana in school and asks about the boy with the really big mask. Kana finds this strange and walks away. Yukichi then meets up with God at the ramen shop. She reveals that she didn't know if he was friend or foe, causing her to be hesitant with him. Koizumi then wonders how Kana has connections with the mafia. While in a cafe, Kana demands that they turn off the broadcast with the friendship party. Takasugi from Tomodachi Land catches Koizumi and attempts to send her to Tomodachi World. "She's a very bad girl," says Takasugi. "I hope they find a spot for you soon." Koizumi tells her parents about this, and they're rather excited by the prospect. In a flashback, Takasugi warned Koizumi not to run away, as they are always nearby. Koizumi then goes to a payphone and is contacted by Yoshitune. Koizumi saw the face under the mask, but it was something that wouldn't exist in this world. It turns out that Yoshitune may get transferred to Tomodachi World, as Koizumi tells him about Kana. A new teacher then arrives in Koizumi's class, as she is reminded of the boy with the mask. She passes out immediately as the new teacher's face is revealed. Koizumi then wakes up in the nurse's office as she finds Kana in the bed next to her. She tells Kana that she met Yoshitune and begs for help. "I don't want to go back to Tomodachi World." Koizumi tells Kana about everything she saw in Tomodachi Land, including the identity under the mask, i.e. the English teacher. Kana then runs to the teacher's lounge, looking for the teacher in question. Koizumi returns to the classroom as the teacher introduces himself. "At my old school, the students called me Sadakio." Kana then looks for Koizumi as she wonders if Sadakio is Friend. Koizumi then gets in Sadakio's car as she notices the robot hanging from the mirror. He asks if she would like to read Ashida no Jo and takes her to his house. Inside, Sadakio's house is filled with old toys and Shonen Jump magazines. She investigates the house, finding a room full of masks. Sadakio approaches her with drinks in hand. "Do you think that I am Friend? Do you think that I killed all those people?" He then starts talking to his mom as Koizumi wonders where she is. The two sit down for dinner as Sadakio wonders if she's good or evil. He references the new book of prophecy in which a new world president will be born. He starts yelling at his mother that he ate his peas as the phone rings. It turns out it's the school's principal. Koizumi attempts to tell her to get some help, but Sadakio ends the call. Sadakio grabs a baseball bat and smashes a computer that he calls Mom. I am good. Take me to Endokana. He says that the Holy Mother will descend. The principal has connections with the Dream Navigators, and they will now come here. The Dream Navigators arrive and tell them to open the door at once. They refer to Sadakio as the director and tell him to think carefully. Sadakio spreads gasoline and threatens to set the building on fire. I am good, says Sadakio to Koizumi. It turns out that this is a replica of Friend's house, as he shows Koizumi Friend's room. He then shows her a picture of Friend. In the past, Sadakio begs for aliens to come down from another planet to be his friends. It turns out that the reason he did this is because he had no friends, and he was picked on relentlessly. The boy yearned to be a part of Kenji's group. He then entered their secret base one day and found another boy inside. The boy shows Sadakio the Book of Prophecy created by Kenji. The boy then asks him to take off his mask, as he asked to be his friend. Sadakio soon transferred afterwards, and was still bullied at his next school. But for 40 years, that boy and him were still friends. Sadakio then sets the house ablaze. Sadakio and Koizumi escape as the teacher says he betrayed Friend. That's not really what a friend is like, says Koizumi. It turns out that no photos exist of Sadakio as a child. I just didn't exist, says Sadakio. After moving away from his old school, he returned a few years later. But upon going throughout the town, no one recognized him. And it turns out that the friend that he made up a rumor that he had died. Having become a teacher now, he has made a vow to remember all his students. The two then decide to visit Sadakio's old teacher, and they find out that he's in an institution, an old folks' home. They reach the old teacher's house as he hands Sadakio a picture. I've been holding on to it for you. I took that on the field trip. That's you, isn't it? After staring at an image of himself as a child, Sadakio begins to cry. In the year 2000, Kenji talks to Kana about bending spoons. When Kenji attempted to bend spoons as a kid, Sadakio told him, you can't use tricks. Everything Friend does is tricks. So Kenji doesn't think it's Sadakio. Kana requests Sadakio information, but no records exist. The principal is going to see him and ask Kana if he wants to come along. In the car, the principal references the Holy Mother, which is Kana's mother. She calls Sadakio and requests to speak to Koizumi. Koizumi interjects as the phone clicks off. Takasugi arrives on the monitor as Kana wonders if this is a Dream Navigator. The principal then asks if she can have a meeting with Friend, i.e. Kana's father. The car crashes as Kana is shocked that her father is Friend. The principal struggles to breathe as Kana exits the car. She then realizes that her Walkman is no longer working. Therefore, she can't listen to Kenji's song. She eventually gets in a car with some guys as she thinks about the last time that she saw Uncle Kenji. I'm not strong at all. I'm so scared. And I don't know what to do. The guys hand Kana some drugs as the guy on the monitor talks about Sadakio's car. The monitor cuts out as Kana says that she doesn't care anymore. Although her cassette is broken, she closes her eyes and begins to think of Kenji's song. Take me to the Toyota 2000 GT! Take me to Koizumi, says Kana. Takasugi then meets up with Inshu. Inshu wants to take care of the Pope, so Friend can become the world president. Sadakio has begun to rebel, but Inshu tells her to give him more drugs. Kana's abilities have begun to awaken, something that pleases Inshu. Now, if the members of Kenji's faction meet up with Sadakio, it's possible that the lies of 1970 will be revealed. Inshu laughs uncontrollably before getting serious. Inshu then says that Takasugi will have Friend's child, as he calls her the Holy Mother. Takasugi goes to Sadakio's location, as she instructs the members to banish everyone in the building. In the summer of 2002, Sadakio meets up with Manchun. The two reminisce, as Manchun asks Sadakio if he went to the 1970 World Expo. Sadakio says no, as Manchun asks him who Friend is. In the now, Sadakio and Koizumi are surrounded by the Dream Navigators. In 2002, Sadakio tells Manchun everything he knows about Friend. In the now, he hands Manchun's memo over to Koizumi. It's all covered with blood, as he reveals that he killed Manchun. We learn about Manchun's life, and how he eventually found out that he had an incurable disease. He then received a letter from Kenji. Let's take this symbol back. That's when Man got devoted. Manchun tells Sadakio that he wants to live as long as possible, as Sadakio whacks him with a brick in the back of the head. Sadakio retrieved the information that he told Man, whilst telling himself that he's good. He then wonders who is good and who is evil, and where he falls in terms of that distinction. Koizumi grabs onto the papers as she sees something bright in the sky. Kana and the guys make their arrival onto the scene. The helicopter distracts everyone, as Takasugi tells her men to eradicate the entire building. Kana helps the people evacuate as she meets up with her mother's old teacher. He says that her mother had a real sense of justice. "Believe in your mother," says the teacher. Yoshitune then drops down from the helicopter. Sadako wants to tell Kana something, as the girl herself arrives on the scene. Kana immediately hugs Yoshitune as she tells him that Yukaji is doing fine. They want Sadako to come with them, but he says, "I'm not who you think I am," as he runs off. Behind the door, he says Kana will learn more about her mother in the papers, and that he killed Manchun. Sadako knows where Friend is as he walks away. Sadako then threatens to burn Friend's favorite Menko cards as he makes his escape. Sadako's car is then later found as a charred corpse is found inside. 12 years ago, in 2002, the town got together for a film festival. As Kana watched the film, she saw her mother on it. Yoshitune then meets up with Yukaji. It seems like the original group is slowly coming back together, as they all stare at the picture of Kenji. Yukaji asks Koizumi about Friend's face, as Yoshitune says that she's in the most danger. The only way for her to survive is to join their group. Kana reads Manchun's papers as it mentions her mother at the Odeon Theater. She then talks to a man that saw her mother. Turns out she was looking for something in the ruins of the hospital. Kana's mother was a doctor, and she saved people from the disease that drains blood from your body. Kana explores the hospital, finding her mother's old office. She then finds the symbol for the friendship party. Tomorrow Society, Bacteria Laboratory. Kana then finds a note inside one of the drawers. "I am Godzilla. I crushed 150,000 people under my feet." "Mom did it," says aggrieved Kana. The old man tells Kana that her mom was saying her name in the footage from 2002. Kana goes to watch the footage as her mom says that she's a monster like Godzilla. She then says she's going to seek out Dr. Yamane for assistance and begs for someone to stop them. Modern history will end in 2015. In her second take for the movie, she tells Kana to be happy. Shogun attacks an executive for the Daifuku Pharmaceutical Corporation. "Where's Dr. Yamane?" demands Shogun. At the secret base, Yoshitune and Yukaji talk about Kana as Koizumi gleefully watches TV. Yoshitune then sees a photograph of Yamane as a child. A news report then announces that an epidemic in West Africa is bearing a striking resemblance to the one that affected people in the terrorist attacks of 2000. Shogun then receives Dr. Yamane's address from the pharmaceutical representative. The man used to be Yamane's assistant, his right-hand man as it were. Apparently, when Yamane snuck into the school that night, the ghost of his friend was doing an experiment in the science room. Yoshitune finds Yamane's name in Manchun's memo. When Yamane was a child, he named a fish after Kiriko, Kana's mother. Festivities for the new year are in full swing. Yoshitune proposes a somber toast, hoping that they'll be able to see their friends again. Kana then sits down next to a street musician, imploring him to keep singing. While the man sings, Kana thinks about her uncle Kenji. Elsewhere, God says, "Kenji, the bowling boom is coming!" Kana and God both have a premonition of events to come. 2015 is going to be a very bad year. The singer for the New Year's festival says that 2015 is going to be a very busy year. Let's go, Maruro. Namio, the singer, goes to give Maruro an otoshidama, which is usually a monetary gift given to children by their adult relatives. However, since he's mourning the loss of a loved one, he can't accept it, per tradition. Maruro and Namio then go to the former diet building, where Friend is. Maruro tells Namio that his suit is packed with explosives. Inside, Namio tells Maruro that if he finds a chance, not to hesitate. Friend is on the other side of the door, meaning if Maruro pulls the cord, it's all over. Namio talks to Friend as he inches his way closer. Maruro then notices a former Minister of Health and Welfare, Mitsugi, a man part of the Friendship Party. He smuggled the virus into the country in the year 2000. Friend begins to sing as Namio begins to etch his face into his memory. Maruro thinks of Kenji as he becomes flustered. Mitsugi then receives news that his grandchild was born as Maruro refrains from pulling the cord. He remembers Kenji's words as he leaves with Namio shortly afterwards. Shogun and Kakata discover that Dr. Yamane moved out 3 to 4 years ago. His new address is in the same neighborhood that Shogun used to live in as a child. When they arrive, Shogun remembers that Yamane asked him about the Book of Prophecy as a child. It turns out that Yamane thought a robot was a stupid idea, as a killer virus would be much more better. He tells Acho they're making a new Book of Prophecy, and they're using a book in the library for the correspondence. Shogun and Kakata make their way to the library. Shogun eventually finds a book that was published in 1967, a book that was never checked out. A piece of paper drops out. Meeting of the Secret Society, the night of January 1st, 2015, the last year of modern history. The two determine that someone is in the science room right now. Koizumi attempts to sneak out to a concert as Yoshitune scolds her for being careless. It turns out Kana went looking for Dr. Yamane's house, but there was just a parking lot there instead. Now, the incident with the Teru Teru Bozu happened when they were in the 5th grade, 1970. But Koizumi remembers a newspaper reading 1971, which means that they were in 6th grade. Is friend lying? Says Yukaji. Now, in 1971, they did a carp dissection. Katsumata, a boy who loved science experiments, died the day before the dissection. Yoshitune remembers how Donkey saw something terrifying in the science room. Shogun and Kakata arrive at the science room as they see someone lurking in the shadows. Dr. Yamane lights up an oil lamp to illuminate the room. Yamane says that friend was born in this science room. No, maybe I should say he died here. Just before the World Expo, the Hanging Hill incident occurred. The boys in the quote-unquote Expo group, which included Yamane, were supposed to be the stars of the class, but Kenji and Acho upstaged them about their ghost story on the Hanging Hill. Friend is coming to the science room tonight, and he's coming to kill Yamane. We then see Kana as a baby being picked up by her dad. Yamane says that Kiriko has been missing for years, but she came to visit him in 2003. Kana continues looking for clues about Yamane as she talks to Yukaji on the phone. Kana then wonders who her father could be. Now, after seeing Yukaji, Yamane got scared of friend and tried running away, but he received a letter and decided to come back. A man with a mask enters the science room. 12 hours beforehand, Namio draws friend's face for Maruro. Him, says Maruro with frustration. Maruro meets up with a family. A teenager remembers a superhero showing up in 1997, a superhero who made Kenchan rice. A year before her husband died, a person from the friendship organization gave her a visit. Maru then calls Haru and says he knows who friend is. He then notices Kana in the schoolyard as a gunshot goes off. Yukaji talks to Kana on the phone, while Yoshitune attempts to determine why friend altered the dates of the past events. They look into a history book and see a picture from the Bloody New Year's Eve. At that time, one of the members of the Kenji faction took a picture of them. Yoshitune calls their old teacher to ask who bent all the spoons in their class. After some negotiation, the teacher reveals the answer to Yoshitune. You. Who are you? Says Shogun. Can't tell ya, replies friend. Friend references all the events that came true in the Book of Prophecy. The evildoers began their plot to destroy the earth. Acho looks to grab him, as friend says that he's Collins from Apollo 11. Yamane says that the Book of Prophecy is fake, and that friend is a liar. Friend banished Donkey from seeing the truth, and now he'll do the same to Yamane. Yamane calls out his lies as he pulls out a gun. Friend is then shot as we are transported back to December 31st, 2000. Kenji stares up at friend in amazement. But, you're dead! Then those kids! And that story about your wife, all lies, to sneak closer to me. A large explosion occurs as we are transported back to the present. Friend looks at the blood coming from his own chest. Am I dying? Friend remains in disbelief, saying that this wasn't in the Book of Prophecy as he collapses to the ground. Yamane says it's all over as he mentions Kiriko's name. He then gets shot himself. Kana then remembers the face of her father as Shogun removes the mask from friend. Fukabe? Says Shogun. Fukabe was the one who took the photo at the Bloody New Year's Eve. Yoshitune has no memories of Fukabe as a child. Police arrive at the school as Maruro reveals himself to Kana. A news reporter then wonders if friend was truly assassinated. Maruro and Kana attempt to sneak into the school as Shogun confronts them. Friend, Fukabe is dead. Inshu then wakes up from a nightmare from when he saw Fukabe as a child. He then receives a phone call that friend is dead. The group then reconvenes with Yoshitune's group, as it's confirmed that Fukabe went into cardiac failure. However, it's not the end for them. They're all alive after all. They then all take a look at Kenji's picture on the wall. Inshu then sees the truth for himself, as he wonders what he's supposed to do now. People all around the world mourn the loss of the hero that saved the world, Friend. The Pope says that Friend is still with them. The Friend faction then holds a meeting, with Yamane being called Judas. Inshu was left with instructions pertaining to Friend's death. They will hold a massive, world-scale ceremony in which the proceeds will be donated to the bacteriology groups around the world. They then wonder who should be the next world president, as Tomura walks in. He wants to take up Yamane's vacant seat. Mitsugi then wonders if they have to do quote-unquote that. "Aren't you all afraid of dying?" says Mitsugi. Now, not too long afterwards, Mitsugi is found dead in a car accident. 3,000 prisoners are then pardoned after Friend's death. Yukichi finds out that her former boss, Mitsugi, was found dead. Kakada then returns to his fellow manga artist. Kakada wants to draw manga based on his experiences and the things he's seen. Acho leaves and tells Kana that things are not over yet, since the friendship party still has the virus. Kana wants to come too. However, Shogun grabs her and says he knows what happened to her mother in 2003. It is now 2003 at the Daifuku Corporation. Kiriko then visits Yamane's office, telling him to open up the curtains. She wants to know who spread the virus, disbelieving the rumors that Kenji's group did it. Yamane has spent all his time making a new virus that Kiriko will have to make a vaccine for. After taking one look at the virus, she says, "Are you trying to kill us all?" For any virus, there will be 1% of the human race that is naturally immune. When the world president is created, he'll receive 6 million votes, with not one in opposition. "Where did 5.94 billion go?" questions Kiriko. "The salvation of humanity that Friend talks about is a complete and utter lie." Yamane then opens up the curtains and flees the laboratory not too long after that, realizing the error of his ways. Shogun says that Kiriko is still alive and that the real battle begins now. Though Friend is dead, he still has an organization filled with fanatics, and the purging of Friend's inner circle has already begun. Namio then takes them all to his lavish estate. Now Maru decided to tell Namio the truth about the events of the Bloody New Year's Eve. And as it turns out, Namio used to be a drummer for Kenji's band. But he eventually switched to another band. He'll thusly never betray Kenji again. Koizumi then watches the news, discovering that another member of Friend's inner circle has died. It turns out that this one hanged himself. Shortly afterwards, Kamukai, another friendship party officer, dies from heart failure. Koizumi's friend then thinks her boyfriend is cheating with her. When the two arrive at his place, he's dead on the floor. Koizumi goes next door to call an ambulance, but that person is dead too, in the very same way. A new virus is killing people like it did in 2000, with an effectiveness rate that far exceeds the former's. We then see a father and son drive around the United States, attempting to expand their soba business. The son takes his sign around town as he finds a boy on the ground. They feed the boy as he says that his dad took away his money. The father wants to meet his dad, so the boy obliges. When they get there, however, we see that his dad is already dead, along with the rest of the townsfolk. What happened to this town? Prior to this, Kiriko approached the boy. She offered to give him $100 to take an experimental vaccine, which he agreed to. Subsequently, his father took the money, and shortly afterwards, everyone in the town began to die, except for the boy. Now, Kiriko told the boy that he was singing the same song as his brother, 20th Century Boy. Kero-yan understands what he must do, telling the boys that they're going to save the world. In Germany, an old man helps out a police officer whose car broke down. Turns out the military has sealed the border in an effort to contain the virus. The officer is worried that he might never get to see his family again. A year ago, the old man and his wife took in Dr. Kiriko. Kiriko is worried that, quote-unquote, he might get the vaccine. Before leaving, she gave them 1 dose of the vaccine, all she had on her at the time, and told them not to give it to anyone else. The old man decides not to use it on himself or his wife, but instead a local boy. Now, quarantines are making the masses restless. Koizumi showers numerous times, attempting to clean herself off since she came in contact with the virus. Her friend then calls to mourn about the loss of her boyfriend. After ending the call, Koizumi attempts to call her back, to warn her not to open the door. Tamako then opens the door to a man who's delivering salted salmon. Koizumi asks to see the delivery driver. She freaks out, realizing he was the guy who killed Tamako's boyfriend. The man whacks her with the salmon, as Koizumi says they have incriminating proof of the murder. He discovers Koizumi's identity through the school register, saying he'll be right over as he smashes the phone. Koizumi is then taken by someone who says Captain Yoshitune wants to speak to her. Tomoko is safely secured, as Yoshitune informs Koizumi that plans for the world's destruction have already begun. Kana has come up with a plan to look inside Friend's mind, by going back to Tomodachi Land. A memorial service is then held for Friend. Now, while everything in the Book of Prophecy is coming to fruition, Friend's death was unexpected. The Holy Mother will descend soon, as a knock comes on the door. Minister Sugawa, Minister of Cultural Affairs, was apprehended at the airport. Inshu wants to banish him. Ceremonies end for the day as Inshu stares at Friend's body. Is this the way you want it to go? Tell me, how does this scenario end? After doing some drugs, Inshu accesses Tomodachi Land's virtual reality so that he can learn more about Friend. Yoshitune's group sneaks into Tomodachi Land as Koizumi begins to panic. They enter the virtual reality area as Koizumi nervously attempts to back out. Koizumi and Yoshitune will enter Friend's mind, while Kana serves as a lifeline. The two are transported to 1971. Everything looks to be the same, except for the bowling alley that's in the location of their secret base. We then see a flashback of when their secret base was transformed into a bowling alley. And this was all done by the quote-unquote evil emperor. The two enter as Yoshitune says that Kenji was the pinball wizard. Now in 1969, they made the base. 1970, they returned to the base again. And in 1971, it was turned into a bowling alley. The owner of the bowling alley marvels at Koizumi's bowling skills, and even grabs onto her. Kyutaro, the owner, wants Koizumi as Yoshitune recognizes him as God. Someday people will call me God because I'm a prophet. Yoshitune blames him for destroying the base. The future could have been different. That being said, Kyutaro argues that he's given the children entertainment through the pinball games. Yoshitune hugs onto the child version of Manchan as the child freaks out. Yoshitune asks about his younger self, but Manchan takes off, saying he doesn't know. Yoshitune realizes that Manchan's gonna clean out the fishing tank in the science room. Just then, another person enters the virtual attraction. Inshu then arrives at the bowling alley. Am I gonna have to see the true 1971? Says Inshu. Now Yoshitune needs to find Donkey since he'll see something tonight in the science room. Takasugi allows Inshu to indulge in his VR, but says he will soon control the world. Takasugi then catches an incomplete dreamer, and wishes to send him back to Tomodachi World. She then notices someone walk by in the rain as tears stream down her face. No, it couldn't be, says an exasperated Takasugi. In 1971, Inshu enters a cafe in San Francisco. He bends a spoon and shows the bartender spoons from the Apollo astronauts. Inshu has found his money tree, as his older version stares at himself. Inshu wonders what'll happen tonight as Donkey and Manchan make their way to the school. Donkey makes his way in as he sees someone in the window. Yukaji attempts to call Kana in real time, but she's too focused on Yoshitune and Koizumi's heart rates. Yukaji then thinks that she sees Friend. She runs after him until she meets up with Shogun. Turns out that Shogun saw the same person walking around. Yoshitune and Koizumi follow Donkey through the school until they see Inshu. A fourth person enters the VR. Clearing the stage is lightning fast. Kana demands to be transported to Yoshitune and Koizumi's location. Unfortunately, she's transported to her Uncle Kenji's bedroom. After Kenji wakes up, Kana tells him that when the time comes, to live through it. After leaving his bedroom, she wants to say hi to her mom, but realizes that she has no time to waste. Donkey enters the science room, feeling like someone is watching him. He lights the oil lamp, seeing a child hanging from the ceiling. Donkey then notices Sadakio in the darkness. He also notices a smiling Yamane. A miracle is about to occur, says Yamane. Donkey notices that it's Fukube and wants to help him out. Fukube's eyes then open up. Tell everyone you know about the miracle. Donkey thinks this is a trick. Banish him, commands Fukube. Donkey then jumps out the window as Yoshitune, Koizumi, and Kana arrive. You want to show me what's about to happen, don't you? Says Inshu. Is this different from the truth as well? A man then approaches Inshu from the rear. This is right. This is the truth. I am the way your son. Friend grabs onto Fukube's ankles and begins to yank downward. You will die here. Inshu attempts to stop Friend, but this is the truth. Inshu exits the VR as he sees Friend holding his headset. The 3D interface starts breaking down as Koizumi attempts to take off Sadakio's mask. After she does so, she exits the VR. Unfortunately, Yoshitune and Kana are still stuck inside. Yoshitune finds himself in a field next to a younger version of himself. The kid Yoshitune is rebuilding their base, as the adult one asks to help out. Yoshitune looks inside the base as he pulls his headset off. Tears stream down his face as he remembers that he was doing good all by himself in 1971. Kana finds herself running for some unknown reason. Turns out she was chasing Donkey. They then arrive at the mansion on the Hanging Hill. Donkey claims that he saw the bad guy last night. Unfortunately, there's no good guys to fight for him. Donkey says he wants to become a science teacher when he grows up, as Kana says that he'll be one of the good guys. She promises to be a hero as she exits the VR. The Pope's visit to Japan is proceeding as planned. Father Luciano comes to pay his respects for Father Perrine. It turns out that Father Perrine's last words were, "When 2016 comes, let us drink until the sun rises." Father Luciano takes one of Perrine's books to the original maker. It's an untitled book containing many prophetic messages, one of which states that history will end in 2015. In the past, Father Perrine met up with Luciano when he was a counterfeit artist. The father asked him to verify the authenticity of a 16th century book. After reading the book, which was the Bible, Luciano changed his ways. Turns out a Japanese man wrote the manuscript for this book and wanted it translated into Latin. Luciano tells a cardinal that he believes the book is a collection of terrorist prophecies. Luciano then doubts that Perrine got drunk and fell down the stairs to his death. Luciano then returns to Perrine's house, realizing that the cardinal he spoke to earlier knew more than he was letting on. Luciano runs away as he remembers that the old bookmaker said that the prophecy book would replace the Bible. Luciano abandons his robes so that he can evade his captors. Now the number of deaths from the virus continues to climb, with no end in sight. Chono interrogates Luciano with no progress. The language barrier makes it tough, but he eventually determines that Luciano is a priest. Luciano conveys that the Pope will be assassinated. Chono is on his side and wants to help him out. Luciano then tells Father Nitani about the plot on the Pope's life. Canon tells Chono that despite being dead, Yukichi and Acho saw Fukube in town. Now, despite Father Nitani's pleas, the Pope's visit will continue as planned. Kanna and Chono will visit the bosses of the Thai and Chinese mafia, making sure they'll keep their promise of protecting the Pope. Meanwhile, the memorial service for Friend continues. The Pope makes his way to Japan as he wishes to pray with Father Nitani when he arrives. A child looks to touch Friend at the memorial, as Friend grabs his arm before doing so. Kanna and Father Nitani watch the Pope's speech on television. It is now January 2001 in China. A priest warns some people about the blood-shedding virus. He looks to drive a truck to deliver some vaccines, but he's unable to do so. A police raid occurs, forcing Nitani to flee and enter a truck. He admits to the father that he works for the Japanese mafia. They reach an unstable bridge, so Nitani will hold the girder while the priest drives across. However, because the priest can't drive, he'll be the one holding the girder. Nitani makes his way across the bridge, but the priest is nowhere in sight. He henceforth delivers the vaccine and drinks the wine that the priest promised him afterwards. Miraculously, the priest survived the incident and makes his way back to Nitani. Later on, that very priest became the Pope, and Nitani became a father of the church. The Pope drives through Shinjuku, one of the most dangerous areas in the country. Yoshitune's group looks for Tamura as we see him sitting on a park bench. Kanna catches a potential assailant, but he commits suicide by biting something inside of his mouth. Tamura helps an old lady across the street as the Pope meets with Father Nitani. Kanna and Shogun desperately search for the 13th assailant. Nitani attempts to warn the Pope of the impending danger, yet the Pope seems confident that he'll survive this. The Pope eventually exits Shinjuku, meaning that Kanna's group has succeeded in keeping him safe. Inshu then tells Takasugi to stop number 13. He then finds out that the Pope will be brought before Friend's body in 2 days, something that shocks him. And because of this, the greatest show in history will be televised for all to see. People gather in great numbers, as the expo is to occur in 2 days. Kanna's group sneaks into the expo with the help of Chono. Tamura disguises himself as one of the construction workers, so that he could scope out the best spot to see the Pope. Maru discovers that the virus is being distributed by a suit-wearing businessman with a gas mask. Kanna's group wonders where the assassin will kill from, as Acho says he won't use any of the obvious choices. Karoyan determines that the masked salesmen are spreading the virus. A bunch of motorcyclists then arrive with the vaccine. Turns out that they were saved because of it, and they received it from the Holy Mother. Now it turns out that Kiriko's at a pharmaceutical company at Lake Michigan. Just then, the factory is attacked by terrorists. Karoyan and the others make their way to the factory post-haste. The World Expo is about to begin, as Inshu claims that the imposter is going to become genuine. The Pope makes his way to the stage as an odd dome is positioned in the center. The dome opens up as we see Friend's body in the casket. The Pope begins speaking as Acho becomes very suspicious of the tower. Chono's group infiltrates the tower, but runs into Tamura. Just then, everyone is stunned to see that Friend has risen up from his casket.
There's cramp in my glide.
Friend approaches the Pope as Acho commands him to shoot number 13. 3 or 4 gunshots go off as the entire stadium goes silent. It turns out that Friend used his own body to shield the Pope. Just when he had been given eternal life, he turned into a god. Inshu was supposed to have written the scenario, but it looks like he's been pushed back to the sidelines. Security floods the stage and gets the Pope to safety. They try to help Friend, but he claims that he's fine, as he then points towards the sky. He became a god. 1 week later, Friend makes a complete recovery to a tumultuous crowd. As he waves, he mumbles, "Wonder how many of you I'll see again." A meeting is held with Friend, stating that the Holy Mother will descend soon. Friend receives a phone call. "We will meet again if the fates allow," says Friend. Salesmen all around the world put their briefcases down, as it begins to spray a mist into the air that creates a rainbow. And with this, the world would fall into ruin. It is now the 3rd year of Friend, as we see a man riding on a motorcycle with a guitar on his back. So let me get this straight. Everyone's trying to stop Friend, and Kenji is just riding around on a motorcycle? Okay then. Now while the group was young, they stared at a rainbow together. Later, Kenji's group goes to Friend's house to read some manga. Now, Friend is very meticulous about his manga, and he doesn't want anyone to ruin his stuff. Kenji's group abruptly leaves and goes to their secret base. Fukube then goes to their base, calling it dumb and lame. He then finds the Book of Prophecy. Sadakio is caught peeking, so Fukube invites him in, though Fukube thinks he's a creep. Fukube shows him the book as he asks Sadakio to remove his mask. Fukube then thinks to himself how he doesn't want to be his friend. "I can create a book of prophecy that's way better than this one," says Fukube. He then tells Sadakio to refer to him as Friend. In class, Fukube explains the World Expo to Kenji. Later on, Fukube wants Sadakio to hand him his mask. It turns out he was supposed to go to the expo, but now he's stuck in Tokyo, and he doesn't want anyone else to find out that he's not at the expo. He then stares at his own reflection as he begins to freak out. Later on, Fukube begins to wonder who he is. Sadakio then comes over to his house as Fukube scolds him. Fukube wants the others to believe that he's in Osaka at the expo. However, he soon gets bored hiding inside all vacation. The two then go over to the mansion on the Hanging Hill, and that's where they set up the Teru Bozu. Now, after scaring a couple, Fukube stares in the mirror, seeing a blankless face once again. Now, word about the ghost spreads around the town, reaching Kenji and his friends. Fukube writes about his fake experiences at the expo as Kenji arrives at his house. Now, Fukube pretends not to be home as Kenji says that they're going to see the ghost at the Hanging Hill. Now, Fukube wants to see Kenji's scared face when he goes to the house, so he disguises himself with Sadakio's mask. However, Kenji catches him and invites him along anyway. Fukube then takes off Sadakio's mask at Kenji's command. Yet, no one seems to care that it's Fukube. No one seems to know that he's supposed to be at the expo. When the boys see the Teru Bozu and laugh, Fukube realizes that his plan has failed. Kenji and Acho start looking around as Fukube finds Sadakio and tells him to take the blame for the incident. Otherwise, he'll kill him. While Fukube scolds Sadakio, Yoshitune returns to the Teru Bozu. Kenji and Acho then run down the stairs in fear, as Yoshitune quickly follows. Fukube returns only to find a broken mirror. "Who are you?" says Fukube. In class, Fukube learns that Sadakio transferred without saying a word. "Banish him," thinks Fukube. After school, Fukube approaches Yamane and Inshu. Yamane claims that the moon landing was fake. Fukube asks to see one of Inshu's spoons. The spoons are made by NASA, and they're not supposed to be able to bend. However, Fukube bends the spoon with ease. In the science room, Fukube and Yamane talk about creating a virus so that they could save humanity with a vaccine. Sadakio returns to the group as they run into Inshu on the street. Inshu wants to work with them as he hands them one of his business cards. Later that night, Fukube performs his miracle for Donkey as the ladder jumps out the window. Something goes wrong, however, as Fukube begins to choke. Now in this near-death experience, Fukube sees a flash of events. A flash of events that become reality. And in the final one, we see Kana standing over him. "I didn't think you'd die this way." Friend wakes up, wondering why that last image wasn't part of the past like the others. It is the 3rd year of the Friend era, as we see the new Friend Party HQ. A small boy then brings some food to a man living on the street. People once called him Shogun, but he's just Acho now. People begin to protest, demanding that they tear down the wall since people are still dying from the virus. Turns out that someone managed to get over the wall. The boy continues feeding Acho, as his older sister, Sanai, wonders if Acho is the one that got over the wall. Indeed, Acho was the one that did it. It turns out that a group known as the Genji faction is working to free political prisoners, and Acho suspects that it's Yoshitune's doing. And there's another group led by the Ice Queen, and she wants to assassinate Friend. Sanai brings Acho some food as she wonders who shot his leg. She strongly distrusts Friend, and wonders why history is being censored after the events of the Bloody New Year's Eve. Acho wants to return to Shinjuku Church. He leaves on a crutch as Sanai tells him that several members of the Genji's faction were isolated in a building. They go to watch the broadcast, but after a certain time, it's forbidden to watch TV. A woman's voice then comes through the static. Take arms and rise. 8:20, 12 a.m. Take arms and rise. Sanai and her brother wheel a cart with Acho inside, and they're heading to Shinjuku Church. Acho then notices a strange building. It's the Earth Defense Force, and it will protect them from alien invaders. They eventually run into the PAL Squad, which is essentially a government police force. They start questioning the kids as Acho creates an explosion so that they can escape. Now anyone who keeps their TV on after the designated time will have to take it to a repair shop, and that's how the government keeps their thumb on them. Acho and the kids reach a bowling alley, the one that replaced their hideouts back in the day. Acho then encounters God. Now, it turns out that God hasn't been having dreams lately, which might mean that this is the end for Mother Earth. Friend is about to close his toy box. Time for him to clean up the entire planet, says God. Now, God wants to help them reach the church in Shinjuku. They eventually reach a hole that is far too small for Acho, so he tells the kids to reach the father on their own. Sarai and her brother go inside the train, where the girl finds a newspaper that says that the Holy Mother has descended. The two find a member of the Genji faction, as the Earth Defense Force arrives on the scene. The man tells the kids directions to the Ice Queen's hideout. The man creates a distraction so that the kids can make their escape. They eventually reach a fork, with the younger brother heading to the church and Sarai heading to the Ice Queen's hideout. God then apologizes to Acho for destroying their secret base. Katsuo, the younger brother, then returns with Father Nitani. In a van, the father reveals that Sarai went to the Ice Queen's hideout. Meanwhile, Sarai enters the restaurant and orders the cold. She eats her soba as Kana sits down next to her with a Shonen Jump. Afterwards, Kana takes Sarai to her room, which looks like something out of the 60s. Everyone who attended the expo received a vaccine, which means Sarai and her whole family were at the expo. Kana determines that her cook was lying about his attendance at the expo. Yet, he still has the vaccine, meaning that he's spying on Kana. Kana sends away the cook and shows Sarai her vaccine mark. In the first year of Friend, the government invokes martial law to send people away on trains to mitigate the spread of the virus. Acho is with a group of guys that seem to be getting along exceedingly well. One of them receives a package from a man in a business suit with a gas mask on. Inside the package is a single vaccine. Anarchy ensues, with many of the men losing their lives in the process. Acho begins to travel as he comes across another town of people who have killed themselves for a single vaccine. Acho stays with a man who thinks that Kenji's faction is responsible for doing this. Due to the limited number of vaccines, a black market for them has sprung up, with people paying as much as 100 million yen for a single dose. Unfortunately for Acho, he was drugged by this man, and when he woke up, he found himself chained to a piece of furniture. Now, after the man leaves, a boy with a weapon approaches him and asks if he's a good guy or a bad guy. People in the village killed the boy's mother and father, as we see the man who drugged Acho looking for the boy. When the man returns, Acho attacks him. Turns out this man has killed and stolen many vaccines. He escapes from Acho and takes the duffel bag with him. It turns out that the man's whole family received the vaccine, but thieves came along and killed them all. Acho then catches the man before he falls off a cliff. The man then reveals that he gave the vaccine to Acho while he was sleeping. Afterwards, the man falls to his death. Acho then takes the boy to his relative's house as he goes on his way from there. We then see Kenji playing with toy guns as he says, "Justice never dies." Back in the present, Officer Chono guards the northern gate. Yet, in 2 years of doing so, he's never seen a single person come this way. An escapee who was avoiding taxes is then shot by one of the officers. The officers then deliver the tax money to one of the wealthy landowners. As Chono rides on his bike, he thinks about Kana, the planet, and the potential for an alien invasion. One of the villagers then comes down with the virus, as the officer with Chono takes up efforts in reducing the spread. Later on, Chono discovers a late-night gathering, something that is forbidden by Friend. Now, during this gathering, it turns out the villagers are listening to a song on the radio. Kana congratulates one of her team members for unblocking a sewer line that leads to Friend's center building. Sanai warns the others that Friend is aware of their plan of the uprising on August 20th. Therefore, it's bound to fail. Sanai pleads her case with Kana, but the Ice Queen remains firm in her resolve. Kana hands over her cassettes to Sanai as she says her farewells. While Sanai walks away, she thinks about how she heard this song before and decides to go back to Kana. Koizumi then meets up with a guitarist whom she listened to back in the day. She takes him to Maruro to help him get a record deal. However, due to Friend's limitations on music, it's a fruitless endeavor. Namio takes a listen, enjoying what he hears. Turns out that the guy learned it back in 2015 from a guitarist that he met on the street. He was alive, says Namio. Turns out that the song has been picked up on the radio in several areas. A mysterious bike rider then approaches the northern gate, claiming that he is Kabuki Joe. Acho and some others go to the Ice Queen's hideout, but she's nowhere to be found. Acho finds Sanai, letting her know that her brother is safe at the church. Sanai informs Acho that she met the Ice Queen, and that the people around her refer to her as Kana. The uprising on August 20th will go ahead as planned, as she shows Acho Kenji's cassette tapes. After a bit of searching, Acho eventually finds Kana once again. At the northern gate, a quote-unquote alien broke through. Chono is then told that the alien is invading, and that he was carrying a weapon that looked like a guitar. Kana informs Acho that she's holding the riot on August 20th because it's Kenji's birthday. Everyone will die, warns Acho. All the people I love are dead. I don't feel anything anymore. This time, it's my turn, responds Kana. In the past, Kana met with Wang of the Chinese Mafia. It turns out that he had a plethora of the vaccine, and they stole it from a delivery truck. Wang then tells everyone to take a dose so as to protect themselves, and even Kana partakes in this. Kana then visits Chai-Pan, who's suffering from the virus. The vaccine they all took was fake, says Chai-Pan. It turns out that only one dose was real, and if they told Kana this prior to giving the vaccine, she would have never taken it, so they all put on a ruse so that she would. Chai-Pan tells Kana to live on, as he would pass away 3 days later. Now Acho believes that Kenji is still living, since the song on the radio is slightly different from the version from the one on the tapes. Kana can't accept this, since her uncle Kenji would have come back if he was still living. Acho then grabs onto a pocket radio and takes it to the rooftop, hoping to get reception for Kenji's song. Upon hearing it, Kana notes how she hasn't heard this part of the song before. We then see Kenji blasting his songs over the airwaves, as Kana grabs onto the pocket radio and begins to cry, realizing that her uncle is still living. The police demanded that the alien reveals himself, as Kenji begins to step out. Kana then apologizes to her comrades, informing them that the riot is cancelled. The group respects her decision, as she urges them not to die, just like her uncle Kenji. Oh, is everyone here for the gathering? Here's one song, says Kenji. Chono immediately recognizes the song as the officers commence fire. Acho tells Kana that there's a 50% chance that Kenji is still alive. He'll now search out Yoshitune and the others. A massive explosion surprises the two. We then see Kenji flat on his back after getting shot. One of Kana's subordinates reports that the hideout was raided and that everyone got shot. Kenji tells the officers that when someone is singing a song, you don't shoot them. After witnessing this, Chono determines that Kenji must be a messiah. The fence is then torn down by the people, as they all start singing Kenji's song. Kenji is through with his concert, as he decides that it's time to go back home, to Tokyo. Chono decides to take along for the ride. Kana is then given an ultimatum. If she wants to save her companions, she must surrender herself within 24 hours. Kana begins to lose all hope, saying that all her friends are either dead or captured. Unfortunately, before the 24 hours are up, the two are apprehended by the New Friends faction. They are blindfolded and brought into a room with Inshu inside. There is something I'd like to discuss with you. I would like to kill friend, says Inshu. Namio and Maruo discovered that the song that was being broadcast on the radio was coming from Hokkaido. Inshu wants to borrow Kana's power so that she can kill friend. Acho suspects that Inshu is playing dirty and merely wants to seize power for himself. Inshu laughs a bit, deciding that he will tell them the whole story. It begins with him in his office as Fukube enters in. The year is 1980. Fukube lies down 3 masks on the table, asking Inshu which one he likes. He then references the Example Project. A man tells Namio and Maruo that Inshu founded a new organization of roller games and hosted a program about children with surprising talent. One of those children could bend spoons, but the program was discontinued because he was labeled a fake. In 1972, Inshu blamed Fukube for being discovered as a fraud. Fukube then vowed to execute the Example Project as Inshu walked off. I will definitely go through with it. My project to take over the world and kill the people. It turns out that when Fukube was first getting his start as friend, he would have Inshu hold a wire for him so as to make the audience believe that he was floating. In the now, Kana knew that they were a bunch of fakes, as she demands her friends back. Shogun wonders how they could kill friend, since he saw Fukube's dead body in the school 3 years ago. Inshu then reveals a bombshell. Apparently, in a meeting 3 months ago, Friend whispered to himself, "If I were Fukube, what would I do?" Friend tells Inshu that if he were Fukube, he would have gone through with the human elimination project. Thus, Inshu begs for Acho and Kana to kill Friend. Elsewhere, Kenji and Chono catch and eat some fish together. Chono mentions Kana, as Kenji says he wants to go back to Tokyo. God tells Maruo and Namio that the end is near, but he's not entirely sure what kind of end will come. After watching Koizumi bowl, God claims that the bowling boom has returned. Kenji and Chono reach a government checkpoint, and without the proper permit, they'll face severe consequences. "This is really bad," says Kenji. Kenji and Chono go to meet a man and go into a bar with him. Inside, they see a wanted poster for Chono, the deserted police officer. The cowboy takes Kenji and Chono to a cartoon artist, who specializes in forgeries. Chono recognizes the guy as Kana's previous next-door neighbor. Chono then leaves with the cowboy, as Kenji stays with the forgery artist. Kenji requests a counterfeit permit, but the last time that the manga artist did this, 2 people were shot dead. Kanto military police then take Chono away, as the cowboy was the one that tipped him off. Kenji then receives the permit from the manga artist. Nevertheless, the manga artist pleads with Kenji not to go through with it, since he's worried that he might get shot in the process. Undeterred, however, Kenji goes to the border, crossing with the forgery in hand. Sometime later, Kenji exits the gates with his life and papers in hand. It turns out the cowboy sold out Chono because his sister was sick, and there's no medicine in the town. He's thusly trying to get some money so that he can save his sister. Kenji then urges the manga artist to make counterfeits for everyone. The manga artist works diligently on completing the counterfeits, as Kenji commends him on his hard work. Afterwards, the townsfolk show the border patrol their permits, but they are met with immediate resistance. Kenji then starts to play a song as the officers start to open the gate. "Well, for now, shall we go?" says Kenji. Now, in order for evil to look good, they need Kenji as the enemy. A man bent on revenge is needed for this sort of drama to play out, says a man known as the Killer. The 200 people rejoice as they cross the border. 6 people understand that Kenji is going to fight, and they want to help him out. While the 7 get food, the cowboy finds out that his sister safely reached the hospital. At nighttime, Kenji jumps the gun and storms the Kanto castle by himself. It is now 1989. After getting fired from his job, Kenji needs to look for a new one. After performing 3 good deeds, Kenji is approached by the Killer. Kenji hands him some concert tickets for the next show, as the man says that he'll definitely come. Sometime later, however, the Killer burns the tickets and says, "Found you, my man of justice." In the past, Friend used informants to spy on Kiriko. Kiriko was dating someone else at the time, so Friend instructed the Killer to eliminate the obstacle. "This is evil, isn't it?" says the Killer. "There's no evil or good in my universe," replies Friend. The Killer then wonders if Friend is the same guy from the other day, as Friend wonders what he's talking about. We then see the Killer kill the boyfriend by pushing him in front of a train. Afterwards, Fukube consoles Kiriko on her loss, as the Killer listens in, barely controlling his laughter. "That woman, your big sis, right?" says the Killer. The cowboy rounds up the townsfolk so that they can storm the Kanto castle. The Killer then reveals that he made the robot back in the year 2000. He was also the person that handed out the suitcases to the businessmen in the year 2015. He then pulls a gun on Kenji. Kenji belittles the Killer's role, as one of the guards says that the people are tearing down the castle. "Kill them all," yells the Killer. The cowboy and his men break Chono out of prison. Kenji wonders what the Killer's name is, as he pulls off his glasses and says that he is Kenji. Chono and his group reach Kenji, as they see him sitting on the floor with the Killer pointing his gun at him. It turns out that Kenji lost his memories during the Bloody's New Year's Eve. But during the 2015 World Fair, his memories returned. After crying for 3 days and 3 nights, Kenji decided he would become a man of justice. Kenji then pins down the Killer, saying it's tough to be evil and much easier to become a man of justice. Kana then meets up with Yoshitune, saying that she will kill Friend. We now see Yukiji in a dojo. It turns out she's gonna shut it down, as she begs everyone not to die. Kana, Yoshitune, and Shogun then arrive. Before they leave to kill Friend, Yukiji wants Kana to see her mother. In the past, Kiriko tended to Yukiji's wounds after a fight with Yambo and Mabo. "I want to become like you see," says Kiriko to Yukiji. The lawyer tells the group that Yukiji was at the factory in Michigan in 2014, but it was captured by Friend. It turns out that Kiriko is now in Higashi Moriyama. Soon enough, Friend will shift his Mars immigration project into action. We then see Maruo reach a building with a flag that says, "The Frog Empire." One of the guards starts shooting, as Maruo says that he was a childhood friend with the leader. Kana's group determines that they need to make their move now, before Friend ends everything. Shogun wants Yoshitune to stay behind, so that someone can stay alive and lead this messed up world. Yoshitune urges them to make it home alive, as tears stream down his face. Maruo then meets up with Carrion in a field. In the year 2000, Carrion received a fax from Kenji, but his wife thought that he was cheating on her. While he was leaving, he saw the robot for himself. Kirion talked to Kiriko in 2014, and she said that someday flying saucers would come down, but instead of aliens, a virus would pour out. That's Friend's idea of doomsday. Now, in order for Kirion to save Kiriko, he had to douse himself in water before entering the burning building. "You're the greatest," says Maruo in real time. It is the year 2000, and Kiriko demands to know what Friend is intending. "It's begun," says the killer, "the beginning of the bloody New Year's Eve." When Kana was born, Fukube promised to protect her. Kiriko went to one of Fukube's meetings, and was horrified by what she saw. That's when she decided to drop off Kana with Kenji, so that she could dedicate her time to stopping the friendship party. When Kirion saved her life, she urged him to protect the vaccine. Shortly afterwards, some men in gas masks demanded the vaccine so as to protect mankind. Kirion then takes Maruo to Yukiji. She then shows the evolved form of Yamane's virus, the ultimate virus. She created a new vaccine and used it on herself. Therefore, if the virus kills her, she loses. But if nothing happens, mankind wins. Kana, Shogun, and Yukiji prepare themselves for the final confrontation. Who will live on? Will he? Will she? Will mankind? Yukiji asks Maruo how Kana is doing. She then confirms that Fukube is Friend. Kana's group has an appointment with Friend that was set up by Inshu. While getting searched, Kana informs the guards that Yukiji and Shogun have weapons on their person, as she is escorted to Friend alone. "She's gonna blow herself up along with Friend," says Acho. Friend goes to give Kana a hug, yet she pushes back. "Who are you?" Kiriko determines that the person that she met 3 years ago that was dressed up as Friend was not Fukube. Friend claims to be Kana's father. The two sit down for a meal as Kana implores him to take off his mask. But she suspects that he got plastic surgery. Friend then admits to giving Kiriko secret medicine so that Kana would inherit his secret power. Takasugi then offers to take Shogun and Yukiji to Inshu. After arriving, they see that Inshu is already dead. "This girl, banish her," says Friend. Takasugi returns their weapons, saying that they were the ones that killed him. Kana then pulls out the grenade and says, "Stop right there!" Shogun attempts to shoot Takasugi, but she already emptied the ammo. Friend tells Kana that once civilization falls, all that will remain is the World Expo. Kana doesn't want to kill him since he's not the real Friend. "Kenji knows who I am," says Friend. "Yes, I am, especially me, a 20th century boy." Shogun and Yukiji make their escape, finding a flying saucer in the process. The country's Secretary of the Ministry of Medical Science intervenes, and it turns out to be Yambo, or maybe it's Mabo. Shogun loathes him for selling out Kenji and using his connection with Friend to make his company a worldwide enterprise. Mabo received the position of the Ministry of Medical Science, so his older brother got jealous and quit government work. In the past, Yambo and Mabo visited Professor Shikishima, informing him that Friend wants the world to end so that they can all immigrate to Mars. Thus, the two want the professor to build a robot to shoot down the flying saucer, so that his prediction will be wrong. Shikishima then shows them the robot blueprints. In the now, Yambo and Mabo show Shogun and Yukiji the robot. Shogun says that there is only one person who can pilot this thing. As children, Fukube, Yamane, and Sadakio walked by Kiriko whilst laughing. In the now, Kiriko starts bleeding from her nose. Kiriko says that when Fukube was holding small functions as Friend, he would speak to someone on the phone that was roughly his age. It turns out that Sadakio went up to Kiriko as a boy, asking about a book that she was reading. In the now, Kiriko realizes that the 24 hours have passed, meaning that mankind has won. Yuichi goes to a supermarket to get some food. Someone from the freezer starts to talk, asking about the virus outside. The person claims that he did something bad to his friend. Yuichi's in disbelief that his friend as a kid turned out to be a terrorist. While the group was kids, they played hide and seek, and Kenji was hellbent on finding the last person. Yuichi walks away as the person in the freezer says that the true identity of Friend passed away in 2014. After seeing the radio station blown to smithereens, Yuichi rushes back to the store, begging for the man to run away. In the past, Kenji eventually found Yuichi. After Yuichi reveals himself to the man, the door opens up, and we find out that the man inside is number 13, rather, Tamura. The two escape on a helicopter, as Tamura says that they're going to see Friend. People around the world begin to pray for the Pope, in light of the news that he's got a severe illness. Father Nitani received a letter directly from the Pope, but the guard won't allow him to pass, since he has no evidence that he's not an alien. Nitani learns that the Pope doesn't trust any of the other priests, since they are in league with the bad Friend. A boy then relays a message from the Pope, saying that the Conclave has chosen Cardinal Manuel to be the next Pope. However, Manuel is a friend of Friend. The Pope's last message to Nitani was, "I shall not die, and let's have that great wine again." Chono meets up with Kenji, realizing that he's going to go past the wall soon. During 2014, when the friend saved Pope's life, he declared then and there that the World Expo would be open forever. Kenji says that the World Expo means Osaka. The World Expo in Tokyo is just a knockoff. Chono and Luciano went inside the tower at the expo 3 years ago, and it was rather dark inside, and there was a child playing and laughing. "Kenji-kun, let's play," said the child. We then see Kana praying at Shinjuku as Yukaji walks in. "You took a hand grenade and chose to die alongside friend," says Yukaji. "I don't remember raising you that way." The two break down in tears as Yukaji says that Kenji trusted them to live on. Kana shares Kenji's new song as Yukaji cries some more. Kenji's group then uses an underground tunnel to reach Tokyo as the alien invasion begins. Eyewitness reports of flying saucers start coming from China and Europe. Takasugi discovers that the Kanto checkpoint has been breached. In addition, a strange song is becoming popular among the masses. In a flashback, Inshu attempts to warn Takasugi that the original friend is no longer of this world. However, Takasugi says, "It doesn't matter to me who he is. The one there now is friend." Takasugi has succeeded in becoming the Holy Mother as she ends Inshu's life. "Friend has found a way to live forever," says Takasugi in real time as she touches her belly. Inside the World Expo Tower, Friend says, "Let's play, Kenji-kun." Now, after being declared the world president, Friend announced that aliens would unleash a historical ultimate virus all over the Earth. He thusly introduced a plan to immigrate to Mars. In the past, Fukube didn't like Sadakio's plan of immigrating to Mars. A man then claims that immigration to Mars and alien invasions are all lies. This man, however, is eliminated with the ultimate virus. Friend's flying saucer drops paint from the sky, as we are once again transported to the past. Fukube read Sadakio's ending for the Book of Prophecy, saying that he just doesn't get it. Koizumi is then seen in a bowling tournament for God's sake. The flying saucers continue dropping paint throughout Tokyo, as Kana senses that Friend will go through with his plan rather soon. Kana thusly wants to bring everyone to the World Expo grounds to keep them safe from Friend's plans. Kero-yan tears down the secret base. Back in the day, Yambo and Mabo took Maruro and tossed him on top of the secret base. Maruro wouldn't allow them to destroy it, however. The two then gave him an option, either destroy the secret base, or they would use their wrestling moves on him. Kero-yan's son raises the flag, as Maruro says it's time for them to return to Tokyo, to take their symbol back. Yoshitune then disbands the Kenji faction, not wanting to sacrifice any more of his men. Yoshitune then meets with Yambo and Mabo, as he is visibly enraged by their presence. "You bastards!" screams Yoshitune. Yoshitune hates how the two sold them out back in 2000, but before he pummels them, Shogun grabs his arm. Now, during their childhood fight with the two, Yoshitune planted their flag firmly in the ground, that ratty old flag of theirs. "This world, necessary? Am I necessary?" says Friend. "Or unnecessary?" A man wakes up and puts on Friend's mask. Friend looks at the last page. Today is the day. Kana thinks about how she'll gather all the people at the expo grounds, as a strange broadcast starts. 20th century boy. Friend begins to speak. Friend admits that all the prophecies were lies. "I did them all," says Friend. "God made this world in 1 week, so I will end this world in 1 week. Kenji-kun, let's play." Since then, 2 full days of rioting and looting have occurred. America is sending over an aircraft carrier towards Tokyo Bay. Atra takes his time training with the robot, as it's the last thing that can save the people. Kana's group goes to the broadcasting station, where they encounter Tamura. Tamura wants to call for an armed uprising, as music plays across the airwaves. Kana states that an armed uprising plays in the Friends' plans, as Tamura wonders what to do next. Kana wants to evacuate everyone to the expo grounds, but people are terrified of leaving their homes. Yuichi plays Kenji's song on the airwaves, as Kana realizes that he's the DJ who played Kenji's song all these years. Kana decides that they'll save the people by making a new Woodstock. Sanai is then thrilled that people are listening to the tapes that she gave out. We then see when Kenji met Yuichi. Kenji henceforth played his song for him, and Yuichi recorded it. Kana begins crying, realizing that her uncle Kenji was alive all this time. Kana gets on the mic and tells everyone about the music festival at the expo grounds. "The singer of the song you heard will also be performing," says Kana. Yuichi begs for Kenji to come, and not to betray his friend from their secret base building days. Friends in her circle is wondering what he's planning, as Takasugi remains faithful to his cause. Kana and Koizumi start gathering as many bands as possible for the festival. Namio meets with Billy as the two agree to get the band back together again. Maruro's group meets up with Dr. Nakahata. Kiriko takes the doctor away so that they can make more of the vaccine. She instructs him to vaccinate himself so that he can stay alive and save more people. Maruro's group gets shot at by the border patrol as they then fall into a river. They are then attacked by a horde of children with masks like Sadakio's mask. Namio meets up with Kana as they get ready for the festival. The kids then want to take Maruro's group to the Masked King. The Masked King is taking care of the children who lost their parents to the virus. The Masked King says that someone made it over the wall by placing spikes onto it. Carry-On then makes it to the top and drops a rope down. Maruro believes that the Masked King is Sadakio, to which the man confirms. It is now 3 days until the concert, as Yoshitune is worried that Kana's plan might not work out. At the first sign of an enemy, run away. Just run away, says Yoshitune. Now it turns out that Takasugi had an informant in the meeting that night. God tells Acho that child's play only ends when the kid becomes an adult. Takasugi learns that Shikishima got himself a remote control. Someone tries to tell Shikishima about the remote as the robot starts to move. The last battle begins. A steel beam falls on Professor Shikishima. Acho heads for the robot as God doubts his premonitions. Yukaji commands everyone to move out. Chono then confronts the former chief of police, the man who killed his grandfather, Chosan. Chono's grandfather discovered that Fukube was friend. He also discovered who the previous friend was as well. And it turns out that the previous one is now the current friend. A bullet then comes through the window and hits the former detective. It turns out that Chosan's findings were left at the Tower of the Sun, at the festival grounds. Chono places the former detective under arrest, as he wants to become a legendary detective. The huge robot terrorizes the people, as Kenji says that he has to go. Kana says that the world is not coming to an end, and that Maria will have to pay her money back. Yoshitune's group storms Friends HQ, as the leader tells the officers not to do anything, to which they oblige. Kana sees tens of thousands of people coming towards her as she collapses to the ground. As a child, someone had a winning ticket and won a Space Exploration Forces patch. Yukiji then occupies Friends HQ, as she instructs everyone to go to the World Expo grounds. Yukiji then reaches Takasugi. Take a look. Soon the saucers will take off, says Takasugi. Upon seeing the saucers, Yukiji begs for her to stop them. Takasugi claims that Kenji is not qualified to have the symbol of justice. Friend is down there, says Takasugi. Maruro then finds Kenji at the Friend Peace Memorial. Kenji-kun, let's play, says Friend. As a kid, Kenji had a losing ticket as he stared down at the Space Exploration Forces patch. In the now, Maruro finds the Space Exploration Forces patch. The group then enters the truck and drives forward. Maria takes Kana home so that she can sleep. Kakada then finds a transmitter that was attached to Kana's clothing. Kenji's group reaches a building that looks exactly like their school from years ago. Hey, glad you can make it, Kenji-kun, says Friend. And we now see that Friend has a robot pointed right at Kana's location. If I move the robot like this, I wonder what will happen, says Friend. Stop it, says Kenji. What's this protector of justice business, says Friend. Remember, you're the one who's evil, Kenji-kun. People sing Kenji's song as they make their way to the World Expo grounds. Tamura flies in a helicopter as he says his life has finally come to an end. If Kenji can't remember his evil, Friend will crush Kana. Kana hears the ground rumbling as she sees the robot outside. Stop it, yells Kana. Kenji remembers everything as the remote starts acting strange. The robot stops moving as we see Acho inside. Although the robot stopped, the saucers are still in play. Friend knows Fukube well, but Fukube's concerns are not Friend's concerns. Kenji then gets on his knees and apologizes. Why do you have to remember? If you apologize, then everything is over. It's all over now, says Kenji. Our game is all over now. Kenji will admit to his wrongdoing at the expo grounds. Friend wants to send the saucers to the expo grounds, but the Masked King grabs him from behind. I'm a good guy! Acho shoots one of the saucers out of the sky, yet the other one moves away. Let's die together, says the Masked King. Cut it out already. You too, Sadakio, says Kenji. Kenji wants the knife as he says, let's finish this. Tamura becomes one with the cosmos by crashing his helicopter into the saucer. The saucer comes crashing into the ground in a giant hellfire. Acho then tells Kana that he shot down 2 saucers as they begin distributing Kiriko's vaccine. There's 1 saucer left, however, as Kenji steps onto the main stage. Kenji and his band then start playing as if they've been together all these years. In the end, he never did play that song. With the group finally together again, Kenji puts his hat on Kanna's head as the two hug each other. In the past, Maruo shows Kenji a Space Exploration Forces patch. The Kenji from now then confronts his younger self. I came here to settle a few things. We are then transported to the point when the saucer blew up. Despite the massive explosion, Tamura managed to escape with his life. However, not too long afterwards, he died because of the virus. Kenji is then seen pulling Sadakio from the wreckage. Sadakio wonders if they'll let him into the group. As Kenji says, he's always been there the whole time. Kenji then finds Friend on the verge of death. Friend wants to play some more, but Kenji says it's over. Fukube, says Maruo. Fukube then wants Kenji to sing that song. On the world, the night falls. Now I, says Fukube, as he finally perishes. I never thought you'd die in this manner, says Kenji. Forgive me. Kenji says he doesn't know who this man is. In the past, a store owner wonders who could have stolen one of the badges. She scrutinizes all the kids, wondering who could have done it. Kenji's group heads to the secret base, as the old lady thinks that Sadakio was the one that stole the badge. Sadakio had a dream last night, one in which Yamane killed Fukube. The two walk off as Sadakio says that a flying saucer came in, and it faced off against a giant robot. And then the world will end with the anti-proton bomb. Kenji then goes to a temple where a monster was seen, only to find an older version of himself. Kiryu helps distribute the vaccine to the people. Kenji then meets up with Kiryu as the two embrace each other. Shoto, Acho's dead son, congratulates him on shooting down the flying saucers. Kenji's group meets up with Acho as they hang up their friendship flag. Stand tall and don't take it down. This is our flag. UN forces then stabilize the region by pushing Friend's army into retreat. Kenji is then interrogated in regards to Friend's identity. It turns out that the government is sending in special forces into the virtual reality game. He then shows Kenji the last page from the new Book of Prophecy. The world will be destroyed by an anti-proton bomb. It is then that Kenji decides that he wants to go into the VR. In the past, Yukaji scolds Kenji for getting in a fight with Yambo and Mabo. We then see Yukaji as she watches one of Kenji's concerts. He walked off with a different girl that night. In the now, the group celebrates their victory. It turns out that Kanna is staying at Sadakio's side in the hospital. Kenji plans on going inside the VR, as Yukaji calls him a fool. There are various things I need to put an end to, says Kenji. Later, Kenji enters the VR with guitar in hand. Inside the VR, someone punches Inshu in the face. Kenji enters the VR as he also gets punched in the face. Shortly afterwards, he runs into his younger self. The older Kenji asks about the photon bomb. As his younger self says, it's from Super Jetter. In the hospital, Kanna attempts to get the attention of the unresponsive Sadakio. Manga becomes reality. He set it up in that place. The anti-photon bomb, says Sadakio. Kenji then sends his younger self off as he calls out the man that punched him in the face. And it turns out that the mysterious man entered the game, but can't find an exit. Kenji says that he already died in the real world, as we then find out that it's Inshu. Inshu cries uncontrollably, as Kenji tells him to stop since it's kinda weird. The two get drinks together as Inshu finds out that he was shot by Takasugi. And it turns out that Inshu slugged himself just yesterday. If only he hadn't strung those kids along, this mess would have never happened. Kenji then asks him about the anti-photon bomb. He also wonders who took Friend's place when he died. But Inshu doesn't know as well. Inshu then recalls a conversation that he had with Sadakio, in which he talked about an imitation of an imitation. Sadakio also talked about an anti-photon bomb at the World Expo. And when the UN forces search the expo grounds, they find some mysterious object with the Friend symbol on it. Sadakio meets another kid who has the same mask as him. One of them then says, "What do you think of an anti-photon bomb?" Chono is now a lead detective of the special UN forces. Yamazaki urges Chono to investigate the sun tower at the expo grounds. Chono then shows him the corpse of Friend. Yamazaki says that Fukube filled the position after the real Friend died. It's just an imitation of Friend, says Yamazaki. No matter how hard Yama worked as a detective, he could never eclipse Chosan. Friend then approached him and said, "Together, let us become the universe." Yama confesses that he banished Chosan. As it turns out, Chosan had figured out everything about Fukube, Yamane, and Sadakio. In fact, the book contained the identity of the man who would take over as Friend as well. Chono praises Yama's efforts, as Yama says that he sounds just like his grandfather. Now, as it turns out, Chono can't investigate the sun tower until the mysterious object is identified. Chono then remembers how Yama told him that Sadakio was Friend. In the past, one of the masked kids handed over a note containing the location of the bomb. Later on, the old lady at the shop accuses Sadakio of stealing one of the badges. She rips off Sadakio's mask and threatens to tell his parents that he stole from the store. Upon seeing this, Kenji disappears. Sadakio buries his face into the ground, claiming he didn't steal it. "Today, you died," says Fukabe. Kana tells Chono that she wondered why Kenji didn't play his song. But all he said was, "You didn't turn out like I'd hoped. But it turns out Uncle Kenji didn't think of me as his child after all," says Kana. The UN forces barge into the ICU, wanting to see Sadakio. Kana won't let them through, as she will talk to Sadakio herself. The masked kid watches Sadakio cry. Kana exits the room, saying the remote control is at the old secret base in the field. Kenji's group talks about the incident with the old lady, as Yoshitune determines that someone was in their base. The UN restrains Kana as the nurse says that Sadakio is in a coma. Because she's the daughter of a friend, they have to take her into custody. Kenji protects Sadakio from some bullies. He asks about the anti-proton bomb, but Sadakio says that Kenji doesn't get the rules. "Don't you have something else you need to be doing, Kenji?" Sadakio rips off his mask as Kenji freaks out. Acho's group enters the hospital as they attack the UN officers. Acho, Yoshitune, and Karyon will thusly protect Sadakio. Maruo, Chono, and Kana are stopped by the UN blockade, as Kana wonders what they should do next. Chono instructs the military officer to let them through. "Aren't you friends, demon daughter?" says the officer to Kana. Kana proceeds to beg for Uncle Kenji's help. "Someone call me?" says the child version of Kenji. Takasugi is being kept in a prison hospital. Yukiji asks her where the bomb is. It turns out another lady was carrying Friend's child, but she was killed. The child version of Kenji says that Kana spoke to him in a dream, and she said that the controller was in the secret base. There are still loyal subjects to Friend's cause, and they want to set off the bomb and head to Mars. Takasugi then points to a nurse whom she believes wants to kill her. Army officers tell Yukiji what happened with her friends taking a military hostage. Inside the base, Kenji finds a note that says that the remote control is in the time capsule tin. Kenji can't find the tin as he's transported to a bowling alley. Turns out that Professor Shikishima's daughter is the one that wants Takasugi dead. Kana's message got through to Kenji, but now someone else is trying to contact her. Kenji asks God about the tin box, but he knows nothing about this. Kenji then asks himself and Mon about the tin box. He then starts digging, finding said box with the remote inside. The real one is in the secret base in the theme park. Inshu then attempts to contact Kana for Kenji. Yukiji attempts to talk Kana down, as Kana says she knows where the remote is. With this, Inshu has finally done something to help the world. He then bends a spoon as he fades away into the light. God reads the Book of Prophecy, discovering that when the robot pounds its foot down, the world will explode. Shikishima's daughter has the remote in her possession, as she listens to the teachings of Friend. "Friend, see you soon." We then see the robot moving ever so slightly. Yukiji and Kana make their way through the replica town as they arrive at the secret base. Kana then finds a switch, and when the giant robot crushes the secret base, the switch will be triggered and the Earth shall explode. The two then see the robot off in the distance. Acho's group hears about the situation with the robot. Kenji attempts to exit the VR as a flood of memories engulf his consciousness. "Justice never dies," says a weary Kenji. Kenji tells the officers to move, otherwise the world will be destroyed. Kana is unable to break the switch, but she then has a vision of a bookshelf filled with manga. Kenji then races past Kakada and the manga artist on his motorcycle. Kana tells Yukiji the apartment number as Acho plans to confront the robot. Kenji finally arrives, saying he'll take on the robot first. If he fails, Acho is up next. Whatever happens, it mustn't crush our secret base. Kenji then grabs onto the robot. Father Nitani, Luciano, and the Pope pray for the safety of the Kenji faction. All around the world, news spreads about the moving robot. Kenji gets inside as he attempts to control the robot. Yukiji then starts fighting with Shikishima's daughter. Although Yukiji gets the remote, it's already been set to automatic, so the robot's gonna crush the base if it's not stopped. Shikishima's daughter attempts to kill herself, but Yukiji won't let her. Due to the levels of panic, Sanai requests that everyone play Kenji's song. Kenji then catches the robot in a trap that Yukiji taught him when he was a child, causing the robot to fall over. Kenji emerges from the wreckage as Kana goes to hug him. After the calamitous events, the UN then introduces the heroes of mankind. The group then goes out for a round of applause. Yoshitune says that the real people who are supposed to be here are Kenji, Yukiji, and Acho. Now in Thailand, Shogun is working with the police to take down criminals. Now once the robot was defeated, the UN saluted Kenji. "I still have things I gotta do," says Kenji. Kenji takes his younger self to Sadakio's house, prior to him moving away. Sadakio takes off his mask as the younger Kenji tells him to send him a letter. At the same time, Sadakio passes away in the hospital. Look at him. He looks so happy. The older Kenji wants his younger self to do two things. Otherwise, he'll end up regretting it. Kenji tells Yukaji he's going on a world tour. The younger Kenji apologizes to the shop owner and Sadakio for stealing the badge. Kenji says he's going to propose properly to Yukaji, as she calls him stupid. Is this world needed? Am I needed or not needed? This kind of world is not needed, says a boy. Now, as it turns out, Kanna's powers are already gone. She's currently in Africa with Chono. Kanna then finds her mother taking care of local villagers. It turns out that Kiriko has saved many villagers, but there's been no rainfall. Kanna then finds a water vein as Chono starts digging. Kenji then finds a kid preparing to commit suicide at school as he tells him to stop. 20th Century Boy starts playing as the boy decides to climb down the fence. Yukaji doesn't care about Kenji's antics as the boy goes to lie down on the roof. Hey, can you be friends with me? Says the boy to Kenji. I guess it's okay, replies Kenji. But you know, you don't become friends by asking. The boy then walks past the older Kenji. Hey, you're Katsumata-kun, right? The boy merely stares at him before walking off. Kenji tells his younger self to live strong before he walks off. Elsewhere, God can't die yet, since the bowling craze is finally coming back. And with that, guys, that officially ends 20th Century Boys. Now, after hearing the entirety of the story, you might be saying to yourself, who the heck is Katsumata? And that's a rather valid question because we actually never see his face in the manga. It turns out that he's the forgotten fourth member of Fukube's group. Now, they reference him here or there throughout the manga, little bits of information are given to us, but that's about it. There's just not a lot to go off of. But there is a lot of speculation throughout the community, and one of the theories that I really liked was the one that considered the idea that Katsumata was actually the real friend from the beginning. That in fact, Fukube was just a figment of everyone's imagination, someone that never existed. It was merely just a persona of Katsumata. Kinda similar to the way where Tyler Durden never existed in Fight Club. He was a persona of the narrator. And this actually does have a lot of merit if you consider some of the evidence. For one, whenever Fukube is looking in a mirror at himself, he's always asking the question, who am I? And there's even a couple instances of him looking at himself and seeing a blankless face. So one could suggest that Katsumata created an alter ego that was Fukube. So the person that we knew as Fukube this entire time was actually Katsumata. And in fact, there's a detailed, well-reasoned explanation behind this by the Profound Entity on Reddit. And I really suggest that you guys go through this. Even if it's not right, it's very interesting to consider some of the evidence that he laid out. For example, in chapter 26, when Fukube introduced himself to Kenji, Kenji tried to guess his name and said, Fukube? And Fukube responded with, don't call me that, I'm too old for that nickname. In addition, in chapter 129, when we saw the first friend holding up Kanna, we would assume that this was Fukube, the first friend. But in chapter 221, when the second friend was reigning over the world, the second friend says, I went on walks with you in a baby carriage. Back then, I held you like this, higher and higher like this. Now, how would the second friend know about this if it wasn't Fukube? Well, Fukube could have simply told him this and he's just pretending right here, or it was Katsumata all along and Fukube was just the alter ego. Hence, he shares all the memories with quote-unquote Fukube and himself. But then you may be wondering as well, there were two different friends. And there was even a point in the manga where friend said, what would Fukube do right now? But this could be an identity crisis. This could be a situation in which his psyche is splitting. He's creating two different personalities. And maybe for him, the Fukube alter ego died in 2015. And this is why Friend seems more unsure of himself. This is why he seems to be different, because he's not the alter ego that he created anymore. He's trying to be himself, but himself is no longer the quote-unquote Fukube friend. So anyway, like I said, go read the theory for yourself on Reddit. It's really interesting. But thanks for listening to the story, guys. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you guys want to help me out a little more, I do have a Patreon account. I always appreciate that as well. But until next time, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the flip side.